to call this thing?
I got it. Okay. Incredible, new, fantastic, astonishing, mighty, original, uncanny, sensational podcast.
I'm just going to put down infamous.
Hello, and thank you for joining Infamous, the audio podcast. This is Brandon, or Mutilus on the forums.
And this is Parker, usually going by Tweak on those forums.
This is Jeremy, still going by Jeremy on the forum. So
that you've been to.
Cool. All right, well, thank you for tuning in today. We have a couple announcements we'll do before the news today. Just giving you guys a head up, we've kind of reformatted the way we're going to do our ratings, so they'll go a little bit quicker, because last episode, if anybody remembers, was a little long. So we're going to try and condense those and get it back down to about hour and a half to 2 hours is our goal with the pre-ramble at the end. And so we're looking for about an hour and a half of like episode meat, that juicy episode.
Succulent.
And
succulent.
It's succulent. Just right off the bone.
Drips off the bone.
Man, you distracted me. Now I'm thinking about barbecue, and I can't think about what I was going to talk about. Oh, yeah. We do have multiple ways to get in contact with us. Please, if you have opinions about the podcast, I know some of our listeners are local to Kansas City, and so they just tell me in person. But if you think that the episodes should be longer, shorter, different colors, or like anything, just please either message our Facebook, Infamous MCP, on Facebook, or you can get a hold of us on our email address, which is infamousmcpod@gmail.com. And then you can also get a hold of us on YouTube. We're actually starting to post actual content, not just podcast episodes. So our newest first battle report is me and Parker learn how to use TTS, because Parker is locked in a dungeon and can't leave the house. And so he plays TTS with me, and we have a pretty cool battle report on there. It's a little long because it's our first time ever playing TTS, but I think that our next one will be about half the length.
It followed like a parabolic function. The beginning, everything was taking so slow, and by about halfway through, it was clicking. It was fun.
Yeah, we kind of got moving once we understood what snap means. But yeah, it was pretty fun, and so you can go on there and you can watch that. And Jeremy joins us for about half of it, and so he's giving nice commentary.
I find it amazing that Tabletop Simulator, just how closely the game can be stretched out exactly like a Parker game. It's incredibly long. It just takes what seems like just forever. And you wouldn't think that you could get the whole Parker like feel, but you sure do. Mm-hmm. You do.
Yeah. It's amazing how Parker's taking 45 minutes to like select his characters. It's just average.
It's really Parker's Tabletop Simulator. It simulates
it's good.
my
it's
exact
good.
experience on the tabletop.
Well, it's the analysis paralysis that I love, because just as you would expect, it does in fact take him 23 minutes to figure out which model to activate when he's only got 2 left.
It could be either or.
I know. There's so many options. It could be anything.
It's a 50-50 chance I get it right.
All right, well, that's about all the announcements we have today. So we'd really appreciate your feedback. Not even asking for reviews. Just tell us what you like about the podcast and what you don't like about the podcast, and we're going to try and make it better for you guys. So with that, I believe our next topic is the news.
News.
All right.
In order
Parker.
of appearance, we've got Mystique's panel to play comes out. And a big highlight from Mystique's panel to play is really, we said last week when we were talking about Magneto, if only there was a character in the faction that could destroy terrain besides Magneto, so he wouldn't have to do it all himself. And lo and behold, here comes Mystique. She can do basically she has the precisely Punisher's power, where she can blow up rubble and cause 2 damage to anyone around it. So one more way to blow up stuff. I hope she's a 3-point character, and I think she's going to make a lot of Magneto lists, just because one more way to buff up your team power without Magneto having to activate and do it first.
I have one point of order. I never said we need someone else to blow up terrain, and for the record, Magneto is the only one that ever does anything in the Brotherhood. So I think this is actually very apt to only have one character destroying the terrain.
I'm just going to go ahead and be on the record and say good thing there too. I think there's good thing there too.
Although On are we still on Mystique? Or are we gonna move on?
You can just say one more thing about Mystique. That's fine.
But are you done saying
Yes.
things about Mystique? Okay. They do mention in the panel to play that she's going to be very good at sneaking into the back lines to secure objectives for your team. And I'm very excited about that because she's going to obviously fit into my Web Warriors list. That's going to be amazing.
Curious thing. Speaking of that shapeshifting thing, we don't know precisely how that works, other than that it prevents you from taking reactive powers, and she can apparently look like tactics cards.
Yeah.
But we're not sure how she gets in the back line. But that could be cool with our quick segue into. We saw some team tactics cards for Magneto and the Brotherhood, and one of them, Asteroid M, could be very interesting for Mystique because Asteroid M allows characters to teleport across the board to the positions of other characters. So if Mystique can get into a back line, that
based
could be
on
cool.
based on the spoilers, it is verbatim Mothership from
Right.
Black Order.
But so that could be interesting when you have a character that's specifically designed to be in like interesting placements on different sides of the board. That could be cool. So that was a thought I had for Mystique once I saw Asteroid M. But we also saw in that reveal for those team cards, Magnetic Refraction, our very first reusable tactics card, as long as you're playing Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So I basically just view this as a Magneto power that they wanted to not allow you to use if Magneto's playing in another faction. And so they wanted to give you a reason to not just put Magneto in every list, and this is it, because you basically can only play this card if you're in Brotherhood.
I really like, for a
And so-
design thing, I like that a lot. I like when
Yeah.
you're like this. They wanted to give Magneto this ability, but then when they put it on his card, they went, "Oh crud! If you put him in other lists, it just becomes totally bonkers." So
Yeah. But they didn't go as far as to say it's a Brotherhood card that Magneto can
Right.
play, because then it's completely unusable outside of Brotherhood. So they you can use it once in another faction. Well, I guess we haven't actually seen if it's unaffiliated yet. But based on the wording they use, I would assume that it's not, because what else would be the if you're in Brotherhood thing? But yeah, because it is usable outside Brotherhood, but it's much more powerful in faction. I actually think this is a great way to move forward with a lot of those like very specific cards. Like I would have liked to see like some of those Doctor Strange spells be like semi-reusable based on like if you're playing Defenders or something.
yeah, that would since there is no Defenders card yet, it would have given Defenders like a certain reason besides just Doctor Strange's leadership ability to play Defenders. So I think hopefully we get a Defenders card at some point, but that would have been a cool way to go with it. The last card we got was Magneto makes snowballs out of terrain and chucks them at other people. So that's the last Magneto card. There was another card called Heave Ho in there, which is fine. But the Magneto makes snowballs of your stuff and throws them at you is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, this is hands down the most exciting card that was been spoiled like since Magneto.
I think it's cool. I'm not that. There's ways to get 10 dice attacks in the game, but not many. So it's cool that he gets it so easily. He can conjure it up.
So I am going to point out it doesn't actually say in the spoiler that it caps at 10 dice.
That's true.
It just says can hit that target 10 dice very easily because he generates the two size 2 things. And so I'm optimistic that it won't be capped, although I would assume it's going to be capped probably at 10. But I think it's just a little odd that they let you throw up to size 3, but it caps at 10. And because that's just a weird, like, you throw one of his free ones and a size 3, you're already over the cap. That just seemed a little odd to me. And so I went back and reread it, and it doesn't actually say it's capped at 10. But they do specifically call out number of 10 dice.
So moving on to the part, this is Jeremy and I were both just over this card. Okay, we're going to get to Cyclops in a moment. I love me some Cyclops, but OMG, that Storm, though. That Storm.
You guys like
Storm
this character?
looks... I really like Storm's card. I like it a lot. I love 3-point leaders, and this card just... She's got support. That faction ability, just giving everybody cover by itself, super cool, but then it's got some place effects on it. Like some really wicked place effects if you had large base characters. Storm's card is, I think, super duper strong. For 3 points, I think she's very aggressively costed. I think X-Men Gold is going to be a very, very, very strong list. That's my personal take. What do you think, Jeremy? We were talking about it earlier.
Yeah, I mean, anything that lets you place, even though it doesn't seem like it's that far, if you're 2 inches on one side of a guy and then you go 1 inch on the other side and you're using a large base, that is a hell of a leap.
Yep.
And your entire army basically being able to do that, it's a pretty big deal.
For no power. It costs nothing.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to imagine what kind of impact that has, and it's just going to be a huge impact, but how that'll actually, come out, God, until I see it played, I don't know. It just seems pretty cool.
Yeah. And then everything as cover is not nothing. Like, it's not exactly damage reduction 1, but it's close if you're getting attacked outside of range 2.
Okay,
cool.
so I would like to chime in here real quick. So trying to understand, there's a lot of wording to this, but the way I understand this is when someone's activating, a friend within 2 of them may place within 1 of the person activating, right? Okay. So that's cool. I don't know how often it's going to be usable because obviously you're not going to have a bunch of characters on top of each other all the time. But it is very cool. And the fact that it's free is awesome. I think obviously the way more valuable part of this faction ability is always cover. Mostly because it's going to work way more often.
Yeah. Eye of the Storm is cool. She has some pretty strong attacks and a beam. She has a beam 3 that goes up to 6 dice for each attack. That's pretty cool for, cost 3 kind of. Hurricane A2 also seems interesting if you gave it 2 dice. She has stealth period, which is great. Called Goddess of the Storms, not stealth, but it's the same effect. And then she has a throw that works on terrain or characters. That is super cool.
That's not nothing.
And immune to shock, which is okay, but still. And flight. She's got so much stuff. And her defensive stats aren't even that bad. I was expecting her okay, so she's going to be bad on defense. She does have slightly lower health, which is why she's, I think, 3 cost, but she's a 3/4/3. Man, we'll talk about her later when we rate the X-Men eventually, but man, super strong. And finally, my big I was so disappointed by Cyclops. I really wanted him to be super cool, and he's.
Meanwhile, everyone else on the podcast is like, "Yep, that's about right."
I know. Everybody in the world told me the Cyclops was going to be meh, and I was like, "No, you guys just wait. Cyclops will be great." And
not gonna be is like always has been, always will be.
And I was very, very, very. I was disappointed. And actually, it's funny. I think if Storm and Cyclops both hadn't been, spoiled back to back, I'd be like, this guy could be pretty cool. Let's see what he does for the X-Men. But then with Storm's right there next to him, hitting him, tapping on the shoulder, hi, I'm 1 point less and a lot of ways better. I would go, okay.
Okay, I know you say that, but I think Field Leader is what you want Storm's faction ability to be.
Yeah.
Field Leader is amazing. And everything else about his kit is very solid.
I don't think he is. Put it this way. If I say the word bad to describe him already, I take it back. He is just, next to Storm and the incredible efficiency of that card, he is just not nearly as efficient. You have to get 3 power on him to use Field Leader. And so you'll have to get him a little bit closer than you might want to. But he does have hit and run. He does have quick draw. He does have some abilities to get up his power. I don't think he's all the way bad. And X-Men Blue will be really interesting to see what kind of, there's a lot of ways to manipulate X-Men Blue. There are a lot of really cool, super over-the-top powers that cost a lot of attacks that cost a lot of power. So maybe that could be interesting.
I was really surprised that we didn't get Astonishing X-Men as one of the 2. So Uncanny X-Men could have been one of them, and Astonishing could have been the other. I know they went with the blue and gold, but I was surprised they didn't have I guess that would mean they would have different allegiance cards. But I thought this would have been a good opportunity to have that first double faction. X-Men have 2 lists basically, and obviously we're probably a long way from needing that outside of maybe Avengers, just because they have so many people. But
yeah, I think this character will. I think Cyclops will be. He does have a wild push on his blast. If somebody's going to sit down and go, he's got to be 4 points. Look what he does. He's got to be 4 points. And I go, yeah, he's got to be 4 points. But I suppose one of the cool things about the X-Men in general is you put, I think what we're going to find out is you put Cyclops in your roster, you put Storm in your roster, and then you can choose. Do you want the cheaper, super efficient Storm leader power, or do you want the slightly more expensive, but perhaps got more flash if you get the power tokens, Cyclops leader power? So I think it'll be fun to build their lists because you kind of get two different affiliations in one affiliation.
I really like his X-Men Blue ability, mostly because it's going to get Vision and Wong onto the table a lot, I think. Because Vision's just sitting there handing out power to every single person wanting to attack. And he can survive up on that front line, so he's within 3
That's
of everybody.
True. That's a really good point. You get your power generating guys. Somebody...
And, oh no, I have another fucking energy beam attack. Oh no, what will I do?
Well, it makes me think, too, the characters that usually take, like, 2 turns to charge can then skip that turn. Like, they can go ham a turn early because of his ability. Mm-hmm. They're like, I'll borrow theirs. Boom. Like Doctor Strange. Like, he can't just do it off the bat. But if he was to gather, 2 or 3 extra turn 1, good lord.
Quick Draw is basically just Martial Paragon. Or Martial Prowess, or whatever you want to call it, because there's basically 3 characters that have this ability now. It's Gamora, Proxima, and now Cyclops.
I like Cyclops. I think he's going to be fun, but he's going to be super power hungry. So I'll be interested to see how you can. But he also, he has 4 physical defense, so he's going to, he's got pretty nice defensive stats. He's got 6 health on both sides. I'll be interested to see how often he can use all of his abilities to make him worth it. But I think if you can stretch him out and get all of his powers to go off constantly, I think he's going to do a lot of work for a list. But I don't like how power. I think
you'd be surprised how much power he's going to generate.
I hope.
With his attack.
I hope I am wrong, and he'll always have all the power he needs to do all this cool stuff. I have this feeling that he won't, but we'll see. Let's jump into that was news. That was everything. Let's get
nosy in. Everything on news. Real quick, I want to point out 2 things. Mostly the Magneto spoilers, the tactics cards. First off, they're reprinting Heave-Ho, which I'm pretty sure was in the core set. So they're showing that they're going to be willing to print cards more than once. And so you won't necessarily have to go buy a specific pack to get cards. And the new card has new art, which is cool. It's got Blob throwing a car and Toad just like there because that's all he can possibly do. And then obviously Mothership and Asteroid M are effectively the same card, which I think is also exciting because that means just because someone else got something cool doesn't mean that you can't have it too. And so I think that's 2 things, 2 effective reprints, I think is actually a pretty big deal. But that's all I want to say on that. All right. So moving on, we've done announcements, news. We're going to move into our rating for the day and a little bit of discussion, probably before and after, is we're going to do the Web Warriors today. And so the game that me and Parker got to play together was Web Warriors. I got to play Web Warriors. I've been playing a lot of Web Warriors lately since I've been mostly done with the Black Order. Parker, is there anything you want to say about Web Warriors?
In general?
Yeah.
It's I don't want to alarm anyone. but Web Warriors seems like they get all they seem like they get all their cake and they eat it too, and then when they get done with their cake, they throw the cake back at you, and then you get pushed small distance away and you're off the point now. One of the things that it felt in the game, and you guys can watch it on my TTS game with Brandon, I walked into all of Spider People's tricks, even though Jeremy and Brandon both warned me that they have tons of tricks. I walked into all of them like, oh, hello, a trick, and I picked it up. But even without it, one of the things I was staring at the game afterwards is there's really nothing to do about this. I was going to be stuck in this situation. The thing that I don't like about the Web Warriors, and we'll talk about how they get to do this when we rate, but they seem to have the ability to ignore what other factions have to do, other characters have to do. Like, there's a basic rhythm of the game where you're like, I'm going to move twice and do nothing, and then wait for the next turn to do something. Or I'm going to move once and then do something. And it probably will not be nearly as effectual as if I could have moved twice. because of the way characters get to start to consume power and use power in the same turn if they're able to get a lot of attacks off. But Web Warriors say, okay, well, this character is going to move my regular movement and then for some reason have extra power while I attack twice. This character is going to just stand in the middle of the field and then be totally safe from all harm, not because he has some sort of defensive power, but because there's another character behind him that just says, nope, no attacks happen. And then when you move in to hurt me and that springs on you, then that character that got pulled backwards is now going to pull you and eat you. There's a whole bunch of things that the faction does that none of your characters are where they say they are. Most of their characters are going to do everything they want, while your characters are only doing half of what they want. Not because you did anything to you, but that's kind of the pace of the game. So what I'm nervous about with Web Warriors is that in the hands of a skilled player, they're going to create negative play experiences for others. Not because none of them are Thanos. None of them do the whole game by themselves. It's just they all do everything other characters do incrementally better, and they do even better together. It's definitely a punishment of multiplication, right? It's exponentially worse when all of them are together on the field, and there's only 4 of them, and all together they cost 14 points. So it's really easy to have all of that. One of the things Brandon and I were talking about is it didn't even matter. After he built all of his list, the other 2 characters he played against me barely mattered. He chose them strategically, but it could have been any 2 characters in the game, and the game would have been the same because the 4 characters that make up the Web Warriors were going to do so much. But
couldn't have been an Ebony Maw, just saying.
According to our rating system, maybe Ebony Maw would not have been able to cut it. But I think in that game against me, the way I performed into the Web Warriors strategy, I think Ebony Maw could have sat in the middle of the table and just spun 360 degrees for the whole game, and the outcome would have been very similar.
We can get into the list a little bit more later, but yeah. Jeremy, is there anything you'd like to say about Web Warriors in general before we start rating?
Sure. Parker, show me on Rocket where the spiders touched you.
I have it. It's in that large bushy area behind his back.
No, I mean, anyone who's played against it knows what he's talking about, and we will discuss it further in the future. And I played 5 games in the last few days. 4 of them were against Web Warriors and using different tactics against it. It's really strong. We'll talk about it later.
Okay. The one thing I want to say that I think is going to be valuable while we're going through the rating system, and we'll have to talk about this a little bit more as we're rating to let everyone know where we stand on the particular numbers and everything. But I feel like a lot of people playing this game have come from other miniatures games, but more so than most games, some of the community, if not a larger portion than normal, is going to be newer to miniatures gaming because the appeal of this aesthetic is so grabbing. There's so many people that have been into comic books or into the movies or into the cartoons or into the toys for so long that the fact that this game exists means people are going to try it even if they have no background in miniatures gaming. So, coming from 40K or X-Wing or War Machine or any other game that's tactical on the table miniatures game, I think that anyone can tell you in their experience the ability to make choices that undo opponent's choices is incredibly powerful. Going back to 5th edition 40K, Lash of Submission was the first time you could really move an opponent's model without them having anything to say about it. And that immediately took over the competitive meta. Moving over to War Machine, for the entirety of the game's existence, characters that were able to manipulate the board state were vastly powerful compared to other people. Even if that's all they did was the ability to move one model 2 inches. It was incredibly powerful. And then moving over to X-Wing, any ability you have to force your opponent to make certain decisions is very strong. So moving into a game that's scenario-based, like Marvel Crisis Protocol, the ability to move a model off a point or move a model out of melee range or to protect your own models, any kind of board control really, is very powerful and I think has been mostly point costed as such. But the Web Warriors are the first faction that's been focused on board control. And so obviously most of our control listings in this rating system are going to be very high. And I think more so than other stats, control is going to be heavily weighted in their final score. And so I think that's just kind of like a preempting what we're going to be talking about for the next probably about half an hour to an hour.
I'll also say, go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just going to say that was a very good precursor to what we're going to talk about because, and we all found this out initially. It's like, oh, I want to play Spider-Man. He's awesome. Well, Spider-Man got rated, let's call him an 8 right now. And you're like, I'm going to play with this 8 because he kicks ass and he goes out there by himself and he dies. Every game, he simply dies. Well, that's not what he does. And that's not why he got an 8. So yeah, it was good that you said that and kind of lined this up correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's some specific points I want to hit as we're going through these characters that I think are very commonly said about said characters. And I think we'll talk about why they are or are not true. So going in, do you guys want to start anywhere specifically?
No. I mean, we can wherever you want.
Well, in that case, let's start with the leader of the faction, Miles
Yeah, that's what I was
Morales.
going to say. We start. Look at us.
Well, that's just because you copy me a lot and you can't.
I was trying to make that kind of a cute thing, like we're on the same page. But sure, yeah, cool.
Yeah, well, you're wrong about a lot of stuff.
And it
Sorry.
continues. I'm already down. You're just kicking me in the ribs. Okie dokie.
He's wrong again.
I do one thing. It's kick people in the ribs. Ask anyone who's ever met me. That's a fact.
At least we're on par. Let's do it.
All right. So Miles Morales, he is a 3-point leader of the Web Warriors. His faction ability is Great Responsibility. He allows people to modify their skull results while they are holding or contesting an objective. And during any defense roll, each character in the faction can reroll 1 defense die. You should probably familiarize yourself with the cards if you're not familiar, but I think most people have probably seen this guy by now. My first impression when I read this character, how the fuck is he 3 points? Like, that was just first off.
Yep.
Now, that was before I got to play him, and obviously first impressions are commonly wrong. I don't think this character is horribly broken now that I've played him a lot. He is very strong, though. So let's start off with offense, which is our first category. People looking at him initially might say, I'm going to pull up his card real quick. Miles. So people might say, like, he doesn't seem to hit overly hard, but being that he can quite easily get his webline kick up to 6 dice with web swing, and he has a 7 dice energy attack, so he's got 2 energy types. He can throw up to size 3 characters on his webline kick. His basic attack that's free is range 3. He's very mobile. He has the ability to steal objective tokens from people, or at least make them drop them. He has stealth. A lot of great things about this character, obviously. Offense-wise, he's clearly above average because having a 7 dice energy attack is already above average. Like, even Thor is like wishes he had a 7 dice attack.
And it only costs
right?
3. It only costs 3 power. Yeah.
Only costs 3 power, big deal. But really, webline kick is just incredible. Yeah. Like, putting this attack on most people would instantly put them into the upper half of the game on damage. Plus, he's got Venom Blast and the mobility to and range to attack often with it. Like, he's usually getting 2 attacks. The ability to throw on top of it, very good.
And don't forget it's a place effect, so it ignores a bunch of stuff in the game. So he can stay as mobile as he wants. As long as he has 2 power to web swing.
Yes.
Like, as long as he has 2 power to web swing, he's going to do whatever he wants.
Yeah, so the biggest crippling point to him, needing 2 power to really have a true activation. And he has no way to, like, set gain 1 power, so you have to go get it, or not spend power. So those are, like, the 2 biggest parts with him. Usually the only time you notice it is on turn 2, after you've picked up an objective token with him, which is the only time you really feel that he needs that 2nd power. And he doesn't get attacked that much because of stealth. So, anyway, that's my opinion on it. Jeremy, what do you think?
Oh my god, this guy is he's a beater. He's got the ability to place himself and buff his own dice with that, the extra 2 dice, kick, and then also throw. I mean, when it comes down to it, he has a pretty easy to get 6 strength attack, and he's got a built-in 7 strength attack. Are we throwing numbers out here, or are we just talking?
Not yet.
Okay.
So what we're going to do first is everyone's going to just bring up any points that they think are important about the category, and then we're going to let everybody talk, and then we'll
I have one. I
Got
have one
it.
quick thing. Did we play this wrong? Tell me if this is. I'm reading WebSwing incorrectly. WebSwing says the next time it makes a web line kick attack, add 2 dice. Does that mean both times it makes a web line kick, or just the first time?
No, it is only supposed to be the one time you attack with it. The next
Okay.
attack.
I don't know. Did we do it that way?
I think I probably did two attacks with it, if I recall. Yeah, I definitely messed up there. Yeah, it's only supposed to be on one of the kicks.
Still, it's still awesome. Like, it still turns your attack into a 6 die
Right.
attack. It's still great. But
Yeah, but I mean, the ability to move up, do a range 3 attack, but the important thing is he gains power from this attack. So you're coming in with 6 dice at least after you web swing, hitting them. You're probably gaining power from that. Then it gives you enough power to use Venom Blast. Very nice.
or your
but yeah, it's only on
or
the
your
first
second
attack.
action could be a wall crawl movement back. Like, you could just, for your second action, just leave.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, I'm ready to give him a number. Let's get.
Well, the last thing I want to talk about is obviously the tactics card for the faction is all webbed up, which is if anybody's unfamiliar, you pay 3 power on a web warrior. All enemies within 3 gain slow, and then for the rest of the round, any web warrior attacking an enemy that is slowed gains plus 2 dice on their attacks. Obviously very good. It gets him the ability to get up to 8 dice that can potentially throw people on a wild. Very good.
Makes his Venom Blast a 9
That being
attack.
said,
Ugh.
yeah, so he's probably doing a 6 die attack and a 7 die attack on good turns. He doesn't have guaranteed ways to throw people. Parker, what's your number?
As I think I would give him after watching him on the board and do his thing, I'd give him a 7, I think. I'd be a solid 7.
Jeremy?
8. He's 3 points and does all this. It's ridiculous.
Well, the point total really comes into the overall rating, but yeah, so I think
he's got
he's
a
also
7
about a
on his
7.
card. He's got a 7 on his card.
Yeah, I mean that is really good.
That's
The
crazy.
the biggest problem I'll say for him is that he can run into power problems, but God, he is really good. But like we put Valkyrie at. Let's check Valkyrie real quick. That's a good telling factor. So Valkyrie on offense is an 8. Is he hit Valkyrie hard consistently?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, coming in with a 6 die physical attack, but that's 2 power already to get there, so you're probably needing 3 power in the second one. I think he's a 7. I think he's a solid 7.
You sold me. I'd go 7. That's true. Valkyrie's a good standard.
Okay. So moving on to defense, this is going to be a pretty standard talk point for the rest of the game. So Spider Sense is obviously amazing. On defense rolls or on dodge rolls against physical or energy, you get to reroll 2 dice. That effectively gives him, if he's on a point... All right, Parker is busy for a second. He'll be back with us shortly.
Okay.
But anyway, so Spider Senses is really good. If you're standing on a point, so he's got the ability to reroll skulls. You've got 3 rerolls on a defense roll, not on dodges, but on defense. So you could potentially roll up to 6 dice on defense, plus any crits you roll. Very strong. It doesn't work against Mystic, which is pretty big. He does still get great responsibility against Mystic defense rolls. Stealth obviously is important. There's a lot of people that can't get through stealth. However, a lot of the rerolls are shut down by like Marked for Death or Venom's ability. Jeremy, do you have anything to add on the defense aspect?
All 3s across the board. Bunch of rerolls. I mean, he's basically saving 2 to 3 every single time. Very solid.
So where would you put him on the scale of 1 to 10?
Whew.
So, like we said, I think 3, the average of 3 of anyone who has just like 3s across the board means you don't have a weakness, but you also don't have a strength. No other defensive abilities. I put those people around 3. So he's clearly above that because he's got 2 different ways to reroll things. He has the ability to modify skulls, which makes his rerolls even better. And then on top of that, he has stealth. And he's really good at escaping with web swing.
I want to say 6, but I also really want to say 7 because how many characters that we play with have just dropped a bunch of dice and they'll roll 5 defense dice, get nothing. This guy rolls his 3 and then he re-rolls again, and then he can re-roll again. It seemed like he's getting two or three almost every time.
So, for example, we put Corvus Glaive at a 6. We put Loki and Black Dwarf at a 7. I don't know that he gets into that 7 range.
He has stealth.
I think the 10 total hit points is mainly why I'm going to vote 6. If he had 11 hit points, I'd probably go 7.
Fair enough.
Mainly because his rerolls are dependent. Like, if he gets a couple skulls and he's not on an objective, like, that can be brutal for him. He's really... Even though his defense dice are great, he's really vulnerable to throws because he doesn't get his responsibility roll on that. He doesn't get a lot of dice against it, even though he's very consistent on his, like, 3 dice with 2 rerolls at that point, but he has a low number of hit points. Like, having to dodge everything on those big throw rolls is still dangerous. Obviously, he doesn't get hardly anything against Mystic. I think we have to go 6 because he does have vulnerabilities.
And that's because he doesn't have damage reduction, basically.
No damage reduction and low health. Like, he's the lowest health in the game, as far as I know, outside of, like, Rocket. I don't know. Oh, I guess Hawkeye only has 9. Yeah, but there's only, like, 2 characters below him on the hit point
Just
scale.
the built-in rerolls and the modifications
It is really good.
is really strong, man.
I'll add, at least at this point, that if he gets into cover, he's a nightmare. Because getting the 1 guaranteed, and when you're able to mod with even skulls with the responsibility, when you're rolling 3, and then, you know, may or may not get a crit, whatever, move on to, I'm going to reroll up to 3 times, and then change the one that I didn't get to a success, is just like, he's blocking 3 every fucking time. Like, it's so frustrating to play against.
Yeah.
It's really just the limited number of hit points.
Yeah, 2 good hits will drop him sometimes. Like, it's like 3. It takes 3 good hits and a dumpster across the head to kill that guy.
Mm-hmm.
So Miles on defense, he doesn't like have anything superb, except he does enable the amazing defense ability for the rest of his team. So if I was going to give Miles a point...
Well,
we
brought up. So obviously we've talked about how the 3s is a 3, like on the scale of 10. So
right.
no strengths, no weaknesses is a 3. Now, he has stealth on top of that. He has spider senses on top of that. He has great responsibility.
Oh, that's right. I forgot he has spider senses. I've never seen him get attacked.
The two Spider-Men are the ones with spider senses.
Yeah.
Now, spider senses doesn't work against Mystic, so he has a little bit of a weakness to Mystic because his kit doesn't really work against it. But he does still get great responsibility on that, but he doesn't get great responsibility on dodge rolls. And so dodge rolls are the only spot where you can kind of get into weird places because your 3 dice re-rolls, if you're not near an objective, you're not getting to re-roll skulls. And so his maximum defense rolls usually cap out around 3, maybe 4 with good crits.
But he also he gets to use spider senses on dodge.
He does, but he doesn't get great responsibility on dodges.
Right.
So you're losing one of your rerolls. But the big thing is, like, you'll have people that come in and hit you for, like, 6. He's very unlikely to dodge 6, where, like, some people can. But it's more about he's going to, like, not take... Like, he basically has DR2 all the time. But then he's, like, nothing better than that. Like, he's very, very consistent, but his maximum is lower than people that would, for instance, roll like 6 dice.
I totally agree. I forgot, and I forget he has, I forgot he had stealth because all my attacks that I threw at him were within range 3. Right. So like
he's also really good at disengaging, so he can get out of stealth range really easily. So Jeremy came in with a 7. I think I've talked him down to a 6, but that's kind of where we were sitting.
I was gonna put him at a 5 or a 6, but I'm actually thinking 6 because his web swing actually counts kind of as a defensive power because he can web swing in, hit you at range 3, then move out for his second action, and he's probably gained power, and now he's sitting with stealth and spider senses, so you're not probably going to do 2 attacks back at him. Yeah, I would say he's a 6 easily.
Okay, so I think I'm pretty comfortable putting down a 6 here. I think there are situations that he's better than a 6, but there's also situations where he's worse than a 6. So I think 6 is pretty safe. Support. So obviously, being a leader, he has some support because of his faction ability. So usually, I like to start leaders around a 3, but because how good his faction ability is for this faction, I actually think I'm going to go up to a 4.
I think the ability to give it like when we talked about originally, like every character in the game follows these rules, except Web Warriors, they don't. And one of those really key rules is with the dice in the game, like the primary randomization in the game, skulls matter, except for Web Warriors because Miles Morales' ability. I think it's minimally a 4, just for the dumb skulls thing. Because you put any character in the Web Warriors with that ability that can reroll dice. So it's MODOK or Zemo, pick one. Now all their skulls are also rerollable. So I think it's easily a 4, maybe even a 5, because the ability to reroll skulls and then also reroll a defense dice, it's nuts in my opinion. Absolutely nuts. It makes so many characters that can modify their dice so much stronger. I think it's easily a 4, maybe a 5.
Jeremy, what do you think?
He, because of his ability, and he gives everyone the half of a Baron Zemo reroll, essentially. And, I mean, you put Zemo in your list as a 3-point guy that half the time all he does is give this ability, and he just has it built in for everybody. I'm going to give him a 5. That's just really strong.
Okay, so we got a 4 and a 5. What I will say is that the ability to modify skulls is so much more than a lot of people think it is, because they assume it just means on defense rolls. And admittedly, there's not a lot of rerolls this faction gets on offense. But like, for example, I think Valkyrie is one of the really common drop-ins here, because she's got to throw, she's medium speed, she's not slow, she gets a lot of power for a 3-point character. But her Warrior of Legend, letting her modify her skulls on her attacks is actually really nice, and the extra reroll on her defense dice is also really nice because it makes her a little bit tougher. I think anyone with this faction ability is just obviously better. And so, like, I was comparing him to Storm earlier. The cover all the time, I think this might actually be better, because there's going to be those times on defense where you roll, like, crit block skull, and you just can't mod for cover, right? Mm-hmm. And that also only works out of range 2, which I think the majority of attacks are range 2. This works on all defense rolls, and also the modify skull things is on all rolls. So I think that's also very nice.
Can we give him a 5? It's so good.
I think I've been convinced. I'm going to go 5. Jeremy, you talked us up to a 5.
Thank you.
Go, Jeremy.
You get a free 3-point character with him. That's pretty cool.
All right, so the obvious important stat, control. Now, he's not the most controlling character in the faction, I think. Obviously, like, he doesn't have webline, he doesn't have impact webbing. He actually has very little control compared to the rest of the faction. So, running through the things he does have a throw on a wild on an attack that's going to roll a good chunk of dice, but it's not guaranteed by any means, like... So being able to throw a size 3 character short away gets people off a point. Venom Blast, being able to make people drop objective tokens, is very strong. In fact, the ability that it's basically the only character in the game that gets this, because the only similar ability is, I think, the Professionals card, which requires 2 specific characters, and one of those characters needs to be within, like, range 2. And then you still have to play a Tactics card on top of it is huge.
Well,
like, that's...
Well-Laid Plans is the only one that's potentially stronger because it just hits everybody on the field automatically.
Correct. And again, that requires 2 characters to be in your list, and they both have to spend 3 power on people that don't generate crazy amounts of power. That's also very hard. But yes, Well-Laid Plans is a good example that I'm glad you brought up. But outside of those 2 things that he does, the minor throw and the very strong Venom Blast... What do you guys think? Did I miss anything? Is there anything else we should bring in?
Nope, that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay. So what are you guys thinking on a ranking for control?
So I'll jump in. One other thing you didn't mention. He's actually movement medium, which is not great for that.
He is the redheaded stepchild of the Movelongers, because Venom obviously is beefy, and so he's about as fast as Venom because Venom's on a medium base. He's a little bit faster than Venom, but I mean web swing, like he's still super mobile.
Sure.
All right, Parker, hit me with some digits.
I actually think I agree. His control is by far the lowest in the faction. I think it is above average, but just actually, you know what? I don't know if it is above average. I think a lot of characters in the game have as many control effects as he does. The ability to drop, he has to spend the power to make somebody drop their objective token, and you can also just kill them to make them drop their objective token. He's rolling 7 dice already, so I don't know how often the 7 dice. I mean, if they haven't taken any damage, it's a cool way to get their objective token down. But I think that's the situation. So I actually put him at.
I will say that. Sorry,
I will put him at a 5, I think, and maybe I'm got no idea what I'm talking about, but I feel like as a control, I think he is about right on average for the control effects that he has compared to other characters in the game. He's I think at 50%. I don't think he's more than that.
So I do want to say I think control is the hardest one to rate because there's so few characters that have true control abilities that it seems like everyone that has them should be at least an 8 because there's so many people that have not. Mm-hmm. And so I think it is a hard one to rate. That being said, I do agree. I think I'd put him at a 5 because Venom Blast is either a 2 or an 8. And so, I think 5 is a fair place to put him because when you need Venom Blast, it's going to be absolutely amazing. But you could also just try and kill them, but you'd rather not. Mm-hmm. Just the fact that you can just make a statement, you drop it. There's nothing you can really do about it outside of Bodyguard, which I can obviously manipulate with all my board control. Obviously very important. But I agree with the 5.
Is that worth? Gosh, I don't know. See, I'm having trouble with this one because it has the throw in a wild, which is A lot of people have that, and we haven't rated that very high because a lot of guys just have pay 1, throw a dude. The Venom Blast now, so it's all in this. It's like all the eggs are in this basket.
It's literally Venom Blast is the number, yeah.
Man,
but the fact that no one has this though, it's a unique type of effect so far. Because outside of a tactics card, nobody just has it printed on their card that I take your objective token. That's crazy.
It's a big deal.
I mean, I think it's got to be control. I don't know where else you would put that on the rating scale.
Yeah. I mean, I'll go 4, but I'll lean into a 5. You guys are excited about a 5.
Okay. All right, 5. Moving on. We've got Roll. This guy is kind of odd because he's outside of, I think, the obvious theme. Because, as we've pointed out so far, he's more of a fighter than a controller. I think I would go with Skirmisher on this guy because he's very mobile. He can hit hard when he needs to, and he can get where he needs to. That's my opinion on him. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts because I think you could actually try and rate him multiple ways.
I was thinking Skirmisher myself.
I was actually thinking only Skirmisher, yeah.
Because the Venom Blast, one of the best things we were talking about, his signature move, his coup de grace, is a massively powerful attack too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so moving on, we are going to our final rating on Miles. He's a Skirmisher for 3 points. His ratings across the board are 7.655, which is pretty good, basically showing he's not weak at anything. He is fragile, but he's got a lot of rules that help protect him. He hits pretty hard, but only when he gets everything to line up for him. He feels a lot like a scalpel. Like he's going to do what he needs as long as you can do what you need to get him into the right spot.
What's his tactic card we were talking about? The one that gives the extra dice?
All webbed up.
Yeah, so that I feel like every discussion has to be with that too.
Yeah, I mean, all webbed up is so powerful. If you get it to line up correctly, it swings games pretty hard. But any web warrior can play. It's not just Miles.
Yeah.
But do either of you have anything to talk about on him before we give him a final rating? Anything you dislike about him overall?
I think he makes a really perfect leader type character because he's just tricky enough to pin down and kill that you're likely to never lose him. So he's going to get his leadership ability the whole game. That's one of the things I look at when I look at leadership characters is what is their longevity? Can they contribute to the game in ways besides just being the leader? And, we talked about how amazing Thanos is for that reason. He's so amazing at contributing the whole game. It's so difficult to remove him. And Miles, I think, is very similar because he's never going to stop and let you pin him down. He's never going to sit in front of you and do 2 attacks and let you do 2 attacks back to him. That's never going to happen. And I think he's so difficult to pin. And he's going to be contributing so much, and then he has an amazing leadership ability. I'm ready to give him a pretty big number, I think. I think he might be the reason why Web Warriors is good, actually.
All right. Okay. If you're excited to go first, go ahead and go
because I
first.
think he's the reason that Web Warriors goes from 4 good characters to 4 probably oppressive characters. I'm going to give him a big-ass rating of probably an 8. And maybe that's way too high. But I think overall in the game, what he does for Web Warriors, I feel like he's an 8. And maybe that's insane. But I think overall as a character, and by the way, 3 points. Then now we can finally say it, 3 points. I think he might be an 8.
3 points. Jeremy, thoughts?
So he is a 3-point. He's a leader that gives an ability that, and I'm sure I'm not alone here, makes Spider-Man, the actual Peter Parker, into Spider-Man. Because I can tell you, before this guy was brought out, Peter Parker was not great. But this guy creates the team that actually feels like it should. I have no problem with an 8. I think he's great. An 8's fine.
I think the faction ability, I know I've talked at length with Parker, especially in our TTS game, how I think his faction ability is very underrated. It's not oppressive, but it is very, very good. I don't know that I would actually argue against an 8. I think I'm fine with an 8. I'm going to put it down. It's an 8. I think it's important that we've gotten him out of the way because I think he's the most abstract of the characters. I think what a lot of people don't expect is that when they look at a lineup, if you're not very experienced, it's like, okay, there's 4 Spider-Man, or Spider people. I get it. They're all Spider people. They do Spider things. But people don't realize they each have their defined role in the team, which is why you see all 4 of them make lists. And you can take any of them and put them in a different list for specific reasons. But as a group of 4, they're like a 4-man Kung Fu SWAT team. They do what they do very well because they all have a designed role in the team. And so I think we'll notice that as we start giving each of them their role. All right, so we've done Miles. I think the next obvious place to go is Gwen. So, pulling up Gwen's card real quick, who is, I don't know if our listeners have noticed, I apparently have been calling Ghost Spider Ghost Widow this entire time, but that's because I know of a Ghost Widow character from video game I used to play, so not doing that on purpose. You guys need to hold me to saying Ghost Spider. If I say Ghost Widow,
Deal.
correct me.
Don't say Ghost Widow. Stop it.
Don't say Ghost Widow.
Quit it.
Don't forget to get my keys before I leave. Get your keys. Oh, thanks. All right. So Ghost Spider is a 3-point character. She has a lot of support type abilities, and we'll get into those shortly. But we're starting with offense. So offense, I did not realize how good her spider technique is. Mostly because I've never used it is the main reason. So it's very conditional. She gains power for damage like most strikes. If this character has already attacked the target this activation, you gain 3 additional dice on the attack, which puts up to a 7 dice physical attack. But I want to point out, it doesn't say that you've attacked with this activation. So you could do your big attack and then do spider technique to get 3 additional dice and do overall more dice. And then additionally, if the character has already advanced or been placed this activation, after the attack result, they may advance long. And so she's super mobile because if she moves attack, she gets to move again. She attacks attack, she gets to attack harder. So she's good at whatever she does with this attack. Next up, Impact Webbing, which is also on Peter Parker. Gains a power for use, pushes on a wild, size 2 or less, short away. Freestyle Beatdown, 6 dice. If attack deals damage, target size 3 or less. Target may be thrown away short, which is also nice. So she has a pretty consistent way to throw people that are up to size 3. Anyone knows moving size 3 people is obviously harder than size 2 people. Her big powers, Web Line is immensely powerful. within range 4, you pull short. It is basically a guaranteed way to get people off of secure points, or get them into attack range of your friends. Lifesaver is basically the escort to safety action card, just pretty much printed on her card. If someone within 4 gets attacked, you can spend 2 to pull them short towards Ghost Spider. And if they're no longer within range or line of sight of the attacker, the attack ends. If the attacker's activation at the end of the attack did not target multiple people, basically saying that if they were a solo target attack, they get their attack back. Has wall crawler like all 4 of them do. So offense, anybody have anything to say about her offense?
It's kind of weird.
It is weird.
It's very weird. But she does have some good offense. I mean, it's weird, but it's good, which is cool because she gets to do, if she moves, then attacks, then she gets to move again, which is kind of cool because the spider technique. So offensively, I think she gets a point just because of creativity here. I mean, she's got 3 different ones and they're all pretty cool. Maybe a 5.
Okay. So Parker,
I was
going to
say that I
hear what
think
you say.
one of the things we've often done with offense is we've kind of lumped movement into it, and she is queen shit of movement mountain in the faction. Even though Miles gets to hit and run a bunch, he's usually like moving back and forth in the same space. Ghost Spider can do a lot of the things she needs to do, and then still move all the way across the board, because she's speed long to start with, and then like Spider Technique allowing her to do other stuff. I feel like her. One thing I don't like about all of her abilities is all of them are physical, which is what most of the defense in the game is based on. So she's never going to take advantage of anybody's weaknesses. Her biggest attack does 6 dice, which is okay, but it's not going to throttle anybody completely. So she's got to spend 3 power to do as much attack as some of the base attacks of other characters. Those other characters are usually worth 2 more points, but she's never going to be an offensive powerhouse. I think for her maneuverability, I think she goes up to probably like a 4. But I do not see her breaching a 5 just because I don't see her crushing everybody she comes across. I see her doing some damage, but mostly just dancing around them and doing a very good job of that. So I would put her at like a 4, I think.
I think I agree with 4, mostly because she's all 1 damage type. She has the ability to roll a lot of dice in several different situations. Like if you start the turn with 3 power, she can hit you for 6 and then turn around and hit you for 7 with Spider Technique. All webbed up gives her the opportunity to roll even more dice, but at the same time it's all physical. She doesn't have a charge-like mechanic, and so if she doesn't start within range 2 of you, her ability to roll a lot of dice goes away very quickly. I think I agree with the 4. And I think it's only a 4 because of Spider Technique ability to get up to 7 dice. Without that, I think she'd probably be a 3. Alright, so 4. Moving on to defense. I think a lot of people think she's a lot harder to kill than she is. Just like Miles, she only has 10 hit points. She's 3s across the board. Does not have spider senses, but does potentially get great responsibility if she's playing in faction. That's
this is by far her weakest stat. Like this is the way, if you can ever pin her down with 2 attacks like in a row, she could just die like really fast.
Oh yeah, no, she dies. Of all of the characters in the faction, she dies the most.
Which is why I think her offensive number is like, even though it is a 4, I think she'll actually never put out that much damage because if you ever get her close enough to do attacks, she might just die.
Maybe. Very possible. I will say that she can pull people to her with webline to punch them, which is odd. But anyway. So give me numbers, guys. Is she still just a 3? Because great responsibility is not,
I would say
like,
in the faction maybe she's a 4, but by herself she's a 3. She's like a blandest 3. She's just a 3.
You think great responsibility puts her up to a 4 still with 10 hit points?
Yeah, because I think with her speed, she's almost always going to be on an objective also. So she's going to get to get the full. She's a great objective seeker, a great she's always going to be messing with people on objectives and just barely dancing away from them and keeping the objective like in her sights. I think she might be a 4 because she's always going to take full advantage of the ability.
Right, but I mean, positioning is like a playstyle thing. Like, she has a 4 dice ranged attack. Like her standing away from enemies doesn't necessarily make her harder to kill. Are you saying that just because of where she'll be on the board, she should be a 4, or do you think?
I think with great responsibility,
plus
she's a
great
4. I think without it, she's a 1. Oh, sorry, a 3. Sorry, a 3. One less, a 3.
Jeremy, thoughts?
I think she's the worst, and not just in the faction. She's really bad, really hard to keep alive. All 3s across the board on defense. I think she's one of the bottom line, like how to be a bad defensive character. I mean, so to me that puts it at a 3.
Okay.
I agree with the 3. We put Valkyrie at a 3, and she has an additional hit point. And so additional hit point versus great responsibility, I think, is not necessarily a coin flip, but it's pretty close considering that great responsibility isn't really her thing. It's more that what faction you're going to play her in. Although I think she's best in Web Warriors. So moving on to support, I think this is where she's probably going to shine over everyone else. Webline is obviously great support. Impact Webbing's good support. But then Lifesaver on top of that is just huge. So I'm going to let Jeremy go next. Jeremy, tell me why she's good at support.
Oof. Well, she can drag people into other people. She has Lifesaver, so she's dragging people out, making people waste their power. She's got Push on Impact Webbing, moving things around again. She's got all kinds of good stuff. And then she's got the pick up the objective and reroll some dice. She's good.
Okay.
You want a number?
I was
No,
just
not
for
yet. We'll do numbers at the end.
for her ability to support. I mean, I've seen it. You pair her with one other character. It doesn't matter who the other character is. That character is not alpha'd. That's it. Like Lifesaver is exactly what it sounds like. You put her behind the character that you want to be sure does not get alpha'd off the table. They will not get alpha'd. They will then get to attack first, because especially if your opponent did something stupid like send a melee character in with both of their movement actions. Me. So if you send a character in to get Ghost Spider's friend, and Ghost Spider is there and just Lifesavers them out, that means that now their opponent's character is sitting there, ass in the wind, and they're going to get eaten. I feel like Lifesaver by itself is just so strong. It's one of those abilities in the game, and it's reusable. It's not if Lifesaver was a card in the game, it would be played constantly. It would be played. Where is Lifesaver card in the game?
It is a card in the game.
How much is it?
It's Escort to Safety. It costs 3, I believe. I'll pull it up real
Escort to Safety
quick.
pulls you back
Escort
to the position.
To safety. When an enemy character targets an allied character within 3 of this character, the targeted character may spend 3. So it's the person getting attacked spends 3. Push the target character towards the other allied character short at the end of the attack. Redetermine range and line of sight, basically. And if the attack only targets one person, they gain an activation or an action.
But it's much worse because the person getting attacked has to have 3 power already, so it's not going to happen on turn 2. So you have to.
Well, you say that, but we were talking about how avoiding the Alpha Strike, it still accomplishes the avoid the Alpha Strike part. But yes, obviously this power is better than that card for many.
I would say that,
but it is a similar.
That other
mechanic.
card is. One of the things about that other card, and so I stand corrected. I said if it's a card, you always play it. I think that card is not going to be always played because it takes your character being attacked having 3 power, so it means they've probably already taken damage. Whereas Lifesaver says, we're just going to start this game fresh. Like, you'll just have everything you want. You'll have power to start attacking, and you'll be able to use all of it. Instead of spending 3 power and sacrificing that to remove yourself from the fight, Ghost Spider spends 2 power to enable you to have the early activation. But
no, right? We've covered the differences. I think that's important, but it's I don't know. It is weird that there's a card that's so similar to her ability yet very different in execution. The thing I think it's important for people to realize is that, like, when I believe the interaction we had in the game we played on TTS was you tried to full auto with Star-Lord into Venom because he's weak to it, and then I lifesavered to pull him out of range, correct? I think that's what happened. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that you still lose power spent on that attack, which is... I think the threat of Lifesaver is just as good as Lifesaver, because let's say you have a Valkyrie. Valkyrie just got dazed, took a bunch of damage. She starts next turn with 10, because she gets 2, gains 6 for damage dealt, she's up to 8, next turn powers up to 10, activates first. She pays 2 for charge, pays 3 for Dragon Fang, pays 2 for Warrior of Legend, and then you drop Lifesaver for 2, and they lose effectively all 9 power they just spent. And they gain an action, which is irrelevant, because now you're just moving twice. Like, it's so punishing if you don't know how to play against it. And so, I don't know, it's just very rough. And so, that I don't know. Jeremy, with all that knowledge, what do you think the rating should be on support?
I can't remember what we've given others in the past, so it makes it kind of hard.
Okay,
but
I can give you the numbers. We've rated characters with high support so far have been, like, Loki only had a 2, Thor has a 3, Corvus Glaive and Proxima were a 5 because of the double activation thing, which I think we might have been a little high on. Thanos with his teleport ability and extra dice and his faction ability was an 8.
Okay.
Because obviously placing people's really powerful.
I mean, Lifesaver is one of the best support you can have, right? So I'm thinking 7. Because, I mean, she has to be alive to do it.
I think that 7 is, the floor on this character.
You think?
Yeah, I think so. Lifesaver is so good. It only costs 2. She's going to be in positions that benefit that ability because she's like your back objective holder, like Parker talked about earlier with her placement. She has the ability to set up good activations on people. Like, she can pull people I've already activated into melee with, like, Venom or Valkyrie or whoever the hell you're playing with. Yeah, very good. She has a very consistent throw with her good attack, which is good to set up other abilities.
I actually think 7 is...
Parker, what do you think?
I think 7 is very appropriate. I was going to say the ability to just... It's not just... If it was just pull your guy to safety, that'd be one thing. But it's pull your guy to safety, and now that guy is enabled to win the game and have such a huge tempo advantage. She just sucks the tempo completely off of your opponent whenever she wants to, and then then you have those really high rolls where somebody spent a bunch of power to make sure that they got the tempo. Like, that's a primary thing that a lot of people go into the game with. Look at all the power I'm about to spend to making sure I have tempo. And she's just like, nope. So I think she's easily a 7. Easily.
Okay. I put down a 7. We'll move on to Control. So Control, her abilities are going to be Impact Webbing, Web Line, Freestyle Beatdown, kind of. So, Parker, why don't you tell me?
Because if you're size 2, you'll never have the point if she's on that side of the field. You shouldn't expect to anyway. Impact Webbing is going to knock you off every time. And the fact she can do that for free twice from range 4, or move long, and so she'll have exactly the right angle. And then also Web Line to pull you off stuff.
I was going to say I would like to add real quick, just from experience playing. The play is usually she stands on a point, you move up to contest it, she impact webbings you to see if she can push you away for free, which gets her up to 2 power, and then if she fails to push you, then she just weblines you. And so she's going to webline you every turn if you move up to contest, because she's going to impact webbing, move for the perfect angle, drag you off.
She has everything. Doesn't she have every control effect that Peter Parker has?
And even no, she does not.
I was gonna say.
She has a lot of the
right.
easy
ones. That means she's
has all the convenient
she's nearly
stuff.
as good as controlling as Peter Parker. Enough said. Super strong.
Not at least, but she's up there.
Yeah, impact webbing being free. Now that I'm looking at that and just kind of
why is this power free?
I'm like, so you get to play the lotto for free.
It actually gives you a power.
Yeah. Wow. So it gives you the power to make sure you webline if nothing works out. That's so funny. So strong. So strong.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jeremy, give me a digit.
For control?
Yeah.
She
She has the ability to throw more consistently than rolling a wild. She's got Webline, which is powerful. Impact webbing, which surprisingly interacts very well with Webline.
Well, being I know some of the other models, even models that are coming up that are slightly better than her at this, oh God. I just want to call it an 8, but that seems really high. But she's really good. But she won't make it because she doesn't have a hit point. So I'll do 7.
Okay, Jeremy votes 7. I was actually hoping you stayed with an 8 because I believe 8 is correct. The reason I feel 8 is correct is because obviously impact webbing is just like a catch-all unless they're bigger, right?
Yeah.
But Webline has no size maximum on it, so you can pull anybody
Rooted does
that
not do
isn't
that.
rooted. Actually, I don't even know that Rooted does that. I think we speculated. Yeah, we speculated that Rooted was going to stop pushing, but it doesn't. And so I think there needs to be an ability that stops pushing. Because, like, let's say they move up Hulk or Black Dwarf or Thanos or someone that's supposed to hold an objective, and you're just like, oh, that's cool. Impact webbing, Webline, bye. And then they just, like, move out of your range. And you're like, okay. And you're just like, you don't get this point. It's so annoying. And if a lot of people don't understand that it doesn't have a size maximum and it can be used more than once, you can just push each person once with this power. I think Webline is one of the best control powers in the game. It sets up offense. It prevents people from controlling objectives.
Also, she's speed long,
breaks
so
up
she gets to do it
bodyguard.
like, from whatever
It's so
angle she
powerful.
wants.
Yeah.
Right.
I wasn't even...
And it's range 4. Like, she can double move and still
I was gonna
Webline
say
as much as
8.
she has power to do so. Like, it's so good.
The fact she can use it twice is crazy.
Try 4 times.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten that magical 5 yet, but I'll tell you what, when you webline someone, move, webline 2 people, move again, webline another guy, people just break their own models. Like, you don't even have to try. Like, they just get so upset, because, like, everything they've done this entire turn is for nothing, because you just canceled everything they did. And if you want to be a total asshole, you can double move behind them and webline all their people away from your guys. And just sacrifice Ghost Spider for the turn. He was like, oh, well, like, all your guys are not in position to fight next turn. Like,
Yeah, I totally forgot that she could do that multiple times. Yeah, she's... I'll
I
go
was
back
going to
to
say,
8.
as soon as Jeremy said,
Yeah,
I think she's
I think
an 8,
eight's
I was like,
pretty good.
oh, I agree
Parker?
with Jeremy. And then he immediately went to lower. I was like, nope, then I disagree with Jeremy. Yeah.
Jeremy talked himself out
I
of a
did.
groupthink. All right.
Dead.
So roll. I think a lot of people think she's a skirmisher because she's so mobile and she likes to punch people. But I think in realism, she's not actually going to attack very often, which is going to make her slide into the defender role, is my opinion. So what do you guys think? Because she's more about supporting and protecting other people than she is
I was
about
actually
attacking.
wondering,
But I
don't
could
we
be
have a
talked into
controller?
skirmisher.
with that huge control, I feel like
We do have a controller slot, but with Lifesaver being such a support ability, and that's her, I think her key founding power. But she is good at control as well. Like, talk me out of it. I'm saying defender.
I
Talk
think
me
you
out
take
of
her
it.
in Web Warriors, and you're going to use that defender ability. Like, you're going to use the ability to protect your characters, which is exactly defender. Oh man, that's tough because I think she's 100% with if she didn't have yeah.
If you take away
Yeah.
Lifesaver, she's a
So,
controller. If you
gosh.
take away Webline, she's a defender.
But
I think she controls.
what does she do better? Definitely control. Control is...
How
She
she
ahead.
is certainly better at controlling than the majority of characters in the game. I just think the
No, see,
reason she
I would
sees
actually
play
say that
is as a defender.
it's a great gimmick, but I think it happens like
I
once,
don't think so.
maybe twice, and then the game is joined, right? Like it's a kind of an early game thing, is what I see it working as most of the time. And maybe your opponent is really silly and forgets it multiple times, but I think it's going to work once or twice in the early game, and then she's too busy managing scenarios and controlling people. I think she spends the majority of her time controlling. In this way, I wish there was a way to say this, but I think she starts the game. Your opening plan is defender because you're going to want to take that that alpha away from your opponent. The controller, yeah, and I think she's going to spend
and she
5/6
transitions
of
into
the
controller.
game, as a controller. Yeah,
Well, I mean, maybe a half the game as a controller. Yeah, I mean, if you guys both say controller, I'm totally fine with it. It's not a wrong choice. I just think when I think of her, I think defender. But I totally understand the controller route. It's not wrong. Jeremy, do you agree with controller?
I agree with controller, and I think that's what
Controller
makes
it
Web
is.
Warriors so strong.
So overall rating, so we've got 4.378 so far as a controller. She is still 3 points. She is very squishy. She helps your team a lot.
I
Parker, do you
think
have something
for
to
her
say
overall
about
rating,
her?
the ability to suck away an alpha is incredible, and then spend the rest of the game controlling. But what she's doing is she's enabling other offensive characters once, and then manipulating scenario for the rest of the game. If you ever need to kill someone, like if that's what you need to do for some reason, she can't do it. Like, that's not, I mean, maybe with all webbed up, she might be able to daze someone, but you're certainly not counting on her to do it. So I feel like
Yeah.
her rating can't be that extraordinary, unless you were playing a list that you're like, man, if only I had the ability to just not get alpha'd. If I don't get alpha'd, man, I think I just automatically win. If that's like your list, if that's what you're playing, Web Warriors, then I think she's a fantastic rating. But I think her rating is almost entirely that I'm going to support once and control the rest of the time. I'm not sure what number to give that. Can I give a number yet? Okay, well, I think that's what you consider. That's what you have to consider is that.
Well, we're not on numbers yet. Well, I want to piggyback on you real quick, because you said that she's all the stuff you just said about her, I think is pretty correct. I think that there's a very short list of characters you would put behind her on like for protection wise. And so like maybe Rocket Raccoon stands behind her for safety, but like she's the definition of a backline character. Yet all of her offense comes from melee. So she's like the last line of defense. And so she will get into melee fairly often just because people run at you, but that's her job, is to make that unhappen. Like, she's going to reverse that situation by pushing you away or moving away after she drags you like in a direction that's not helpful. So I think she's the definition of like a support backup character. And so obviously your job is to not allow your army to die, and with the controllers and support characters, you're trying to get as deep into the game as you can just to score as many points as you can. I think she performs her role really well, but she's certainly not anything that's going to like win the game on her back alone. She greases the wheels really well. I'll say that.
Yep.
All right, so I think we're ready for numbers. I think we've pretty much talked about this character enough. Jeremy, hit me with a number. Don't second guess yourself this time.
Okay. Impact webbing plus web line plus lifesaver plus 3 points equals 7.
7, huh?
I was going to give her a
Parker?
5 because she can't finish the game, and she herself is, she's got a glass jaw. She just dies, falls down super hard. I would say she's a 5 because I don't think you'll ever be mad to put her in a list, but I think you might want to take other 3-point characters. So I think she's a 5.
I think she has the potential. Like, I think she's a good enough 3-point character to see play in other lists. That being said, I think she's obviously best in Web Warriors. I'm more leaning towards Jeremy than Parker. I think she's a solid 6. I don't think she's quite a 7. I think 7's quite high. But that being said, she does a lot of good stuff. I think we're going to put her down because we had 5, 6, 7, right?
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to put her to 6 for an average. Okay. So let's do Peter Parker next, the last of the pseudotypical Web Warriors. The paragon of the Web Warriors, you might say. So starting with offense, I mean, this guy was in the starter box. Everyone should be fairly familiar with him by now. So he's not overly impressive on the punchy bits. Taser webs is a solid attack. Impact webbing is obviously situational, but you don't use it for the damage. His strike's very average. Anything to add on offense? I guess his webapult throw can throw size 2 people, range short, within 3. It's pretty basic stuff for damage. I think we're just ready for numbers on this guy. What do you guys feel? Do you want to add anything about his offense? It's pretty straightforward.
He does the thing a lot of characters you want them to do, which is attack, and then throw shit at you. So he actually has 3 attacks, so that's kind of a big deal.
Taser webs being range 3 is certainly nice. It gives him a little bit of reach out and touch you. He can set up his own attacks with web line.
It's also energy. Let's not forget.
Yeah, having 2 energy types, but I think if you look at the Web Warriors faction, he hits the least hard, which is kind of odd. But I mean, I think we'll see why when we get to the rating.
I'm ready for numbers. I think he's a. I
Parker,
think he's
do you have anything to add? Are you ready
probably
for
a
numbers?
4, just because he can throw things too. I
Hit-
think he's probably a 4.
Yeah, I think I would put him at a 3, if not for the throw. Maybe I'd still give him a 3 because Taser Webs is pretty solid. But yeah, you don't take this character to beat people up. Jeremy?
I'll go 4 because he does throw the object at something, and that one's kind of hard to not take damage. So he has that with his 2 attacks. So he can do a little bit, but yeah, he's a box.
If you ever leave someone at 1 hit point, he can double long and throw. That's a pretty good way to finish him off. So I think 4 is pretty fair. Moving on to defense, obviously much better than his offense. 3s across the board, however, has spider senses. So he's going to be a lot like Miles, except that he does not have stealth. He's slightly less mobile, but very similar, but with the move longs instead of the move medium with a place. You guys have anything to add on his defense? I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
We basically already talked on these points.
Yep.
We rated Miles a 6. I think as respect to stealth and the faction ability not necessarily always being
I was
on
actually going
Spider-Man,
to say
I think we have to respectfully
maybe
give him
a
5.
4
That's my
without
opinion.
stealth, because I think stealth on Miles and the ability, because he moves back and forth, to always have stealth, have stealth activated a lot. And Peter kind of has to get in front of things to do a bunch. Like, he has to actually get pretty close. Not like incredibly close, but close enough to get attacked back. He doesn't have the hit and run features. I would maybe even put him down at a 4 for defense, but if you hit those rerolls, he becomes just a Jedi. So I could probably do a 5, but I want to put him at a 4 just because he doesn't have the ability to hit and run.
I think I have to put him at a 5 because there's a lot of characters that are like 11 hit points with like a 4 in physical, and I'm like, that would be a 5. I think he's as tough as those characters, mainly because Spider Senses works on dodge.
Okay.
If it didn't, I think I'm with you at a 4. But the vast majority of attacks in the game, he's going to block 2 against. That's pretty good defense. Because, I mean, in a lot of situations, the rerolls are going to be just as good as an extra dice. The only time they're not going to be is if you hit a bunch of skulls or you hit already too many successes to reroll, which is like a good problem to have, right? And so if you're playing outside of Spider Faction or without an objective and you roll a bunch of skulls, I guess is the only bad time for this guy. I think that's going to be a 5. Jeremy, did you already rate?
I have not, but everything you guys said, you've covered it. He's a 5.
Okay, 5 it is. Moving on to support. This is going to be his sad one, probably. Stunning people is more of a control thing. Pushing enemies is a control thing. Webline is kind of support-ish, but it's way more control-y. Yeah, so he's got basically no
Yeah, I feel like
support.
he's a 1. He
I'm
doesn't
happy
do
with a
anything
1
really
here.
for his friends.
The only thing I can even see you arguing for is like weblining people into melee range that have already activated so they can't move away, and that's pretty niche. I mean, that's usually a poor choice to use that on, unless that's like your whole game plan. Jeremy, you agree with the 1?
I agree, and I'll make one more comment on that. Like,
Go with it.
everyone who played the box set and struggled with Spider-Man and struggled trying to find his place and saying, damn it, this doesn't feel like Peter Parker, because he doesn't help your team at all.
Yeah.
You're like, what is this guy supposed to do? I just don't fucking get it.
Yeah.
I give him a 1.
1 it is. Moving on to control. I'm going to let Jeremy go first this time.
10. Oh, was I supposed to talk about it?
No, you're supposed to talk about
Sorry.
his rules.
Sorry.
You idiot.
Damn it.
You spoilers.
Fuck. 11. I meant 11.
No, talk about the words. We do numbers last.
Oh, okay. So we already know about the hotness that is
Writes
impact.
out the word 11.
Yeah. Impact webbing. So he's got that. He has webline. He also has Webapult. And so he's got all the hotness. Basically, he's putting things where he wants them. Period. 11.
We're on
I
numbers
don't
yet.
know if any
sorry.
other character has
Parker.
like 3
Parker, do you
distinct
have anything
movement
to add?
effects and speed long, so he can get anywhere he wants, and sometimes do more than one. Like do the exact thing more than once. Like he is the full package. This is the reason why he's 4 points. Because if he was less than 4 points, people would just cry foul all the time because of this exact thing he does.
So yeah, my comments on this guy are: if you think he should be 3 points, you have not played a game where control can determine the outcome of a game, and you should probably play him in a list that has more control than just him. Or if you are just playing him, activate him last. Like, I think a lot of people haven't gotten to that point yet, where obviously moving last, getting to pull people off of points. I'm just going to run through some scenarios here. Let's say he moves up into melee, is attacking people because you want to be Spider-Man, right? And you're fighting for an objective point. And he gets dazed, gets 5 power, powers up next turn, has 6. You can move long to another scenario point that you could be holding, or even before you move, you impact webbing the guy, get up to power 7, you've pushed him off the point now, let's say. You then move long to contest another scenario point, but there's a couple people over there. So you're going to web line 2 of the guys off, and then web a pull another guy that is at a bad angle for you, and throw him into one of the other 2 idiots you just pulled off the point. Or throw him into a dumpster, or throw a dumpster into him to finish him off. Like, there's so many things he can do to interact with scenario secure points. It's insane. Like, this guy has more control than anyone should ever have a right to have. And it is all power required, but so is every other effect in the game. Like, no one just does stuff for free. So, like, this guy's insane. Like, playing him, he is so powerful late in game. If you're even close to 16 points, or your opponent's ahead of you, in one turn, he can swing the game on scenario because the amount of control he can bring into play. It's insane. I think we're ready for numbers. I say 10. Like, if they print a character that has more control effects than this, I think it'd be bad for the game. And I think Peter Parker is borderline that already.
11.
11.
I think he's the
All right.
definition of a control character. I think
Parker, do you have an opinion?
I don't know how many other ways you can control like the position of people. With Peter Parker on the board, none of your pieces are where you think they are. He's the 10 of a control.
Yeah, if I can't imagine them, like, if you're complaining about anything that he has, the 2 of his abilities are restricted to size 2 characters, which is a legitimate complaint, I think. But that's more of like a game balance thing. Like, if he was able to just impact webbing size 4 people or size 3 people, or throw size 3 things, which I think is actually like the closer one, because he only used once, so he at least can't like impact webbing 2 size 3 guys. But being able to throw size 3 train means potentially doing 4 damage to people with a power. That's a lot of damage on top of a control character. Like his job isn't to hurt people. So just being able to declare that I can move long twice and throw a size 3 character off the board or off of the objective means that we've got Black Dwarf and Hulk and MODOK are the only characters he can't throw off a point. Like, we need to rein it in more than that, guys. Like, I think it has to be size 2 or he starts getting broken. So I think we're putting a 10 because obvious. Like, I don't think it's okay for anyone to have more control than this, so he's got to be the paragon of control. Moving on to role, he's obviously a controller. Right?
Yeah.
Anybody disagree?
Correct.
Okay. So this is one of the characters that I think we're going to talk about, and we're going to maybe disagree a little bit on the ratings. Because, like we talked about earlier, control is very, very powerful, and it's hard to rate on a fair scale. And so being that he's the best controller that we've seen so far, and hopefully we'll ever see, how do you fairly rate him? Because it's the only thing he's really good at is control. He's so-so at defense, he's mediocre at damage, and he's bad at support. So how do we properly rate this guy? Because I think the compounding factor we're going to see is that the more control you have, the better. And so it's a compounding effect. If you've got 4 characters, for example, that can control the map, well, then all of a sudden your opponent has 0 decisions. As where if you have one person with control, it's all about how much power that character has and how many points he can get to effect. So, Do you guys have anything to talk about before we rate this guy? Any good points, bad points, things you don't like about him?
I try and imagine him in other lists that are not spider people, and I never reach for him. He's a 4-point controller that just dies. But
okay,
you let him reroll skulls? Oh my god! So that's my only.
I actually
thing
think you can put him in a lot of lists if you're playing. If you have enough like people that activate him last. I think you can drop him in as a control character, but I think that's why you do it is because you're like, okay, I need to be able to take people off points. That's something I want to do. He does, add, more insult to the Web Warriors list. We've talked about how it seems to do everything at once, and then also kill you. But I think even in that list, he doesn't do a whole lot of damage. He's not killing. He's definitely not, dazing 2 characters, I think, over the course of a game, unless maybe all webbed up. It goes really well for him. So I think he's just a controller, and but he is the best controller. So if you're like, I want to make sure those 2 points don't have guys on them, he might be able to do that, like, really consistently. So. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get some numbers in on this. What do you guys think?
You've played him the most. Why don't you go first on this one?
Okay. I think his floor is a 6. That being said, I think you have to... If he gets into your list, it's for a very specific reason. And in those games, he's exactly what you want. It's kind of like... I'm trying to think of a good example. It's like Valkyrie. Like, if Valkyrie makes your list, she's the best choice. If Valkyrie's not making your list, it's because she's not the best choice. And so... I think it's a 6 because the amount of times he's going to get taken, he's going to be absolutely amazing. But the majority of the time, if that's not what your list does, you're not going to play him. And so, I don't know, I'm probably just reiterating myself a lot, but in Web Warriors, he's amazing. I've looked at the list, and initially I was like, okay, well, you're not going to play Peter Parker all the time. But then I end up playing Peter Parker over, like, really good characters, and I don't regret it at all. Like we talked about in Black Order, how I took Proxima over Black Dwarf a lot, and I regret that decision. And the more and more I play without Proxima, I think it's correct. Peter Parker's the same way, except he's the Black Dwarf. Like, every time I put him in a list, I feel justified. And every time I don't, I feel like I miss him, like, terribly. Like, it was like, oh man, I could win this game if I just had Peter Parker with 2 power on him. Like, this game ends. But no, I'm not going to get it because I don't have that final piece I needed to put me over the top. So I think he's absolutely amazing, but I think he's not good in all lists. And so that's why I bring it down to a 6. I think he could be an 8 or a 9, but that's not true of every list. You can't just drop him in and say, oh, he's an 8, so I win because I've got a bunch of 8s in my list, because he doesn't interact equally with other characters in your roster. That's what I have.
I was actually going to put him at a 5 because I think I think what it is, I think you kind of hit it on the head, which is when you want him, he is amazing, and when you look at him, you're like, wow, okay, he's cool, a character that controls in 3 different ways and doesn't do much else. But if you're playing a faction like Web Warriors where you want that extra movement effect so you always win on scenario, maybe Criminal Syndicate, because you need to move that one other character out of the way because you're trying to win on scenario. For those scenario-focused factions, and the game is also scenario-focused. For the scenario-focused factions, though, that are not looking to beat up to win, I think that he's very strong. However, in factions where you are trying to beat up to win or you're looking for offensive potential, dropping in one control character might make you feel like, oh man, if only I had 2 more attacks on this guy, I could just win the game, as opposed to, if only I could pull him off the point. So I think he's a 5 because looking at like the number of factions in the game right now, how many factions want to see a control character, I think it's probably 2 right now. But I could see his rating going up and up and up as, more people focus on scenario or scenario play becomes the focus of the game. I think his value may increase as people start to figure out how to win, which is obviously scenario.
So let's look at it from this perspective then, because I think the more I hear you talk, the more I want to say is 7.
Damn it! Why are you in my? Now you're all in my thing.
So I think. How about this? If we're looking at it from the perspective of you're obviously going to reach for the role characters that you need. If you need a control character, I think he's at least a 7. Like, he doesn't debuff people really, but with the board manipulation he has the ability to stun, so a little bit of debuffing. He has pushing, he has throwing. I think if you're looking for a control slot character, rated amongst other control slot characters, he's at least a 7. That's what I want to say about this. I'm changing my vote to a 7. Parker, I understand that if you want to keep with your 5,
I'm keeping
fine,
with a 5 because
but I think
across
I'm
the
7.
game, I think controlling is I think across the game, across all characters, I don't think controller is what you reach for. I don't think it's kind of like what Jeremy said. I don't think you go for controllers because most game plans are not based around controlling other characters. Maybe they should be, and I'm wrong, but I feel like that's what we're not in the game right now. It's not a control-based game right now. Maybe it should be. Maybe that's why Web Warriors feel so oppressive. But
I think that's what we're starting to see now, is that it's becoming that, because Web Warriors have exposed people to, man, this control thing really works. Maybe we can do it elsewhere. And so if you've got like honestly, I'm considering putting Spider-Man in my Black Order list. Like, if you've got the Mind Stone and the Space Stone on Thanos, like, how do you lose on Scenario if you've got
the same
Peter
thing's
Parker
true
on
about
Thanos?
I think Criminal Syndicate. They could also do a bunch of stuff with it. So okay, maybe I can't rate him as a 5 because the more we talk about this game, the more we realize Scenario is the win condition, and therefore we have to rate it more highly. So the best controller in the game probably is a 7.
Now, I do want to say, before Jeremy goes real quick, that not all controllers do the same thing. Controller is kind of a broad range, because it's basically anything you do to affect your opponent, other than damage. So, like, Loki controls the board in a very different way than Peter Parker does, and so that's more of like a game time decision. But that being said, Jeremy, let's hear your final rating on Peter Parker.
Well, I was going to be the special one and rate him as a 7, but I'm glad you all got there.
I like that a lot.
Congratulations. But to enhance his 7, I will say he does have 2 different types of attacks. The only problem I have is he is a 4-pointer and he has so low health points. So when you reach for 4-point models, most of the time, those are your characters that kind of start defining what you're trying to do. So if you've got Spider-Man in there and you're not leaning towards Web Warriors, what are you doing? So you have to start asking those questions. And I find, like, well, do I want to beat someone in the face? Okay, well, I'm reaching for a different character. You know, it just, that 4-point slot, man, it's a tough one.
Can I rebuttal real quick?
Go ahead.
So I think what you said is exactly correct. If you're reaching for a 4-point character and they're not doing what you want, it feels real bad. But I think that's exactly correct, because Spider-Man is there to secure the win on Scenario in a list that you're already trying to do it with. And so, like, you can change a list from I like to get scenario points to I'm going to win on Scenario is like my goals 1 through 3. Like A, B, C, win on Scenario. Peter Parker's in my list. I think that's actually his goal, is to make those rosters, not to make a roster like just I'm playing Cabal, I put in Peter Parker to slow my opponent down. Like, that's not why he's making the list. And I think people doing that is why they think he's bad.
Yeah, I think people need to ask themselves when they're building lists, do you have a way to get someone off a point? Do you have a way to do it for 3 points? Do you have someone who can do that job? Now, sometimes Spider-Man's perfect. Web Warriors, obviously, he's perfect. But other lists, you know, there's different ways to do different things.
How about the game we played on Saturday, where you couldn't even use Cosmic Invigoration on Red Skull because he was pushed so far away from MODOK you couldn't get within range 2 to use it? You remember that? He was
I
like
forgot.
standing in the corner of the
No,
table,
I don't
and he's
remember
like,
any
"I
of it.
just want to be over there."
I don't
And like
remember.
he would double move back into the table, get double impact webbing, and then like spider infected person would drag him further away. And he's like, "I literally can't do anything because I just keep getting pushed off the table." And he'd like run back. I don't know.
Yeah, that was it was a good example of just being, I got dog walked off the damn table by Spider-Man, and I mean, there was nothing I could do about it except
Okay.
kill him.
Yeah, which just wasn't working because he's
No.
hiding in cover like a dickhead.
Yeah.
He was like, I guess, great responsibility plus spider senses plus cover is a lot of defense, even though you only have a 3. And you're just like, bounce 4, bounce 4, bounce 4. You're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Parker, we're both at a 7. How would you like to have your closing statement try and talk us down?
It's one of the things I was looking at when I think about sevens, like looking across the rest of the field. I feel like Spider-Man Peter Parker is going to be one of those characters that his rating is going to go up and down as control becomes more and less valuable in the game. Because there's like in the span of any game, you'll see like control effects spike in popularity and in ease of play, and then usually they're brought down somehow by introducing characters that can't be controlled, or by just like actually changing models and things that go on them so that it's not such a negative play experience. So I feel like Spider-Man is one of those characters that whatever we rate right now is going to change, but honestly, based upon what we now know about the game, the current state of it, and his ability to win, right? Because he's like, oh, right, I'm going to make sure I get 1 more objective point this turn, and you're going to get 2 less because I'm playing Spider-Man Peter Parker. That's a point exchange of 3. That's insane, and he can easily do that. So putting him into any list is okay. Putting him into some lists is backbreaking. And that he can be a 7 there. I think he's fine.
Okay. All right, I'm putting a 7. I think it is important to note that he's only a 7 if you're looking for a controller to put in a list. Don't just throw him in thinking he's just overall good, because I think that's exactly why people have thought he was bad. Moving on to the last character in Web Warriors, we might have to speed through this one just a bit to stay on time. Venom, personal favorite. Offense. So I'm going to pull up Venom's card real quick. Here we go. So, physical attacks only, unfortunately. That's kind of a downside. However, 5-day space, automatically bleeding regardless of result is very nice. It's pretty solid strike. Range 3 as well. We Are Venom, amazing physical attack. Cost 3, 7 dice, heal for damage dealt instead of gain power for damage dealt. And then Symbiotic Instincts, no one can modify dice against him, is very strong, and it's becoming more strong. It seems like every time something comes out. Being able to just dogpile Doctor Strange with Venom, like you're at the mercy of your actual dice rolls, bro. Sorry. Obviously against other Web Warriors, very good. So many snacks, being able to attack people out of activation's great. He also has a throw of up to size 3. He can pull people in with his web snare. Just overall great offense, I think. The biggest downside being that he only does physical damage. Jeremy, do you have anything to add on him?
I really like his melee range of 3. I think that's really good. He's got
People
a
like
7.
People like to poo-poo his short movement, but really, you almost never feel it with Venom, because
he reaches around corners.
Yeah, exactly. Not to mention, like, range 3 means they could get cover on your melee attacks, but they don't because you have symbiotic instincts. It's so annoying.
The
Parker,
fact
do you
that
have anything you want to throw in?
He ignores like, oh, look at this cool ability on New Storm. Everybody gets cover, and we all Venom. Who gives a shit? Like he ignores. Like, this is, I've said this many times. You'll notice a theme in this podcast today. Web Warriors just ignore things in the rule book. And he's one more character. He's just like, look at all these things that let you modify your defense dice in the rule book. And he's like, we are Venom. We don't give a shit. That one ability makes him so much stronger baseline at offense than every other character in the game, and then they gave him a range 3 melee attack and an ability to heal when he does damage, and he's going to pull people in. Even though it's a control effect for him, he uses it offensively because he's so slow. It makes him look like he can't move and attack you, but he just pulls you in, and he's totally fine sitting in a scrum with you. He's a scrum character that can pull in other characters to continue that brawl. So I think he's a super strong offensive character. His whole kit feeds literally, no pun intended, exactly him. I think he's super strong.
Mm-hmm. The biggest weakness he has is getting power, which he will usually do through obviously his basic attack and taking damage. But the only thing that slows him down is not having enough power. I will say that. So Jeremy, hit me with some numbers. What do you think?
Just looking at him again, this guy can attack you 4 times in a round, which is crazy.
4 times? Just 3 times, right?
No, attack, throw shit at you, and then so many snacks you. Right. Which is...
You're counting the throw as an attack, and a dodge roll's basically an attack.
Yeah, so I'm just saying the amount of damage he can output is craziness. Numbers, I'm going to give him... what was Valkyrie?
8.
8? Oh, he's not an 8.
He's definitely lower than
He's
Valkyrie.
Not an 8. I'm going to go with 6. Let's be reasonable.
Okay.
I'm going to say
Parker,
because he has... so many snacks, and that means he's going to do attacks also again. If he has the power to do everything, and he should, right? He's a brawler. He's going into combat. He's dealing attacks. He's taking it back, and he's never letting you mod your dice ever. That works on so many things. I'm actually going to put him at... Oh, man, it's really weird because... I think he's a 7. I think he's a 7.
Do it.
I think the only reason why I put him up at a 7 is because he throws and he snacks and the symbiotic insync, and he's got a 7-die attack with and he's got range 3. Like, he's going to be doing his thing so much.
How about this? I think Venom is pretty exclusively going to be played with the Web Warriors. Specifically, at least you're going to have a Spider-Man in your list, I think. But there are some situations outside. Venom's a fan favorite. He's going to make a lot of lists just because he's Venom. But people don't think that 7 can turn into a 12 very quickly, but it can. Because the 7 plus Uneasy Allies, which doesn't cost power, just suffer a damage to get plus 3 dice on your next attack. If you're next to Spider-Man, they both take 1 damage. And then on top of that, all webbed up works on him as well because he's a Web Warrior. Gets him up to 12 offensive dice. Auto bleed, so many snacks, Clintar rage, mainly the ability to throw stuff medium range. I think a lot of people underestimate, especially size 3 stuff. Like, that actually matters. And so that all combined, and one thing I do like to do is you wait for someone to attack you after they've done their second action, or like, so the attack hitting you is their second action. Then use so many snacks and hit them back. They automatically gain bleed and suffer a damage because they can't shake it. It's pretty funny. I think it's a 7. I'll go with a 7 because of there's multiple tactics cards that up his damage specifically. I think I'm okay with a 7. And he's going to attack a lot. The extra attacks, specifically out of activation, and with how he's going to stick around with how many hit points he has, I think 7 is fair.
And also, the thing is, you can't even do quote-unquote range attacks against him without him hitting you back. Like, that's the craziest thing. Yeah, because
he's got such reach.
To be doing so much more in terms of like output over the course of a game, so much more.
Yeah, Valkyrie definitely has higher damage potential, but he has so much ability to counter people's defenses that I think a lot of people don't think about. Because you can do automatic damage with the throw people into train. You can do higher damage by throwing train into people, automatically bleeding people. No dice mods. I think it all adds up. I think it's definitely better than a 6. So, moving on to defense. 4-2-3 on defense. I think trading a 2 to... Going down to 2 on energy to go up to 4 on physical, I think is about a wash. There's more physical attacks, but you're obviously going to be a magnet for all the energy attacks. He's on a medium base. He's size 3. It's harder for him to get cover than most people. He doesn't have spider senses. However... So many snacks plus We Are Venom is a great way to try and survive. You guys have anything to add?
It's as good as damage reduction, like a general one, if not better.
Yeah, I'm not against that. Like, there's games where Venom takes like probably 20 damage and just never dies. It's kind of like Thanos. The problem is if you go in and miss, you are so heavily punished. Like, you need to devote a huge attack to making sure you finish him off in one hit, or like do a little bit of chip damage, like do a couple throws and then hit him, or if you can get like the 5 damage through on a ranged attack that's out of range 3, then you just throw shit at him. Like, you can't trigger so many snacks at that point. And so you have to try and wait for him to activate and then dogpile him in a way that he can't trigger We Are Venom. And because if you can do that, you can get rid of him. But the problem being that, as we talked about, it's almost like if you use Charge plus, Dragon Fang plus Warrior of Legend on Valkyrie and you punch Venom, and then all of a sudden he backs up short and you lose all your power and Venom lives another round, you're going to want to hang yourself. Like, there's a lot of synergy in the faction, but like on his own, he can just survive a ridiculous amount of output. Because there are a lot of characters that don't have energy damage, and he's not vulnerable to Mystic. So it's specifically energy you have to bring. And obviously, you're going to try and counter-deploy Venom away from their energy dealers.
I'll say the one thing...
7 on the front. 7 on the front is a lot of health, too.
Right, yes. I was going to say, the thing that I actually love about him most is he's got so many stacks. We Are Venom. So when he takes the damage, he's going to do it back to you. It's range 3. And he's got the health that you actually very rarely are going to get taken down with one activation. It's possible, but it's not likely.
MODOK can do it.
There you go, right? But it's going to take you like a 5. It's going to take like a 5-point character. So you're going to have to devote stuff, and they're going to have to roll. Like, they have to do it all. But if they do, then they got him, and congratulations. And one thing I was going to say about his, which I don't know if it knocks his defensive rating, but I think it does, is a lot of the range 4 and 5 characters in the game, like a lot of them, those range 4 and 5 attacks are very commonly energy, which is
oh, definitely. Range attacks
so
are most commonly energy, with this small exception of like rifles. Like,
right. It just so
like
happens
Winter Soldier,
that you want to hit him with range 4 and above, so he can't immediately hit you back, and he's weak to energy. So they gave him this really complete kit, but a very big hole in it, which is all the ranged characters in the game except the few riflemen.
Oh, yeah.
So I think because of that, he loses. He could be an insanely high rating, but I think he actually gets taken back down a fair amount because as soon as somebody hits him with, a beam attack of some kind twice, all of a sudden he feels so weak comparatively.
Right, and that's part of his like being able to get to him. Like, he has to have a weakness, right? Because if it wasn't for that, and honestly, like what we're talking about, like losing 1 defense to 1 damage type, like isn't actually that big of a deal. Like, the statistical average of 2 dice versus 3 dice is not hugely different. Like, you're averaging like 0.3 defense higher, like, per roll. Obviously, it's more potential, more crits, it is obviously better, and that's the scale we're rating on. But like, I don't know. I think he's at least a 6. I'm just gonna come out and say it.
Yep.
I think we're at the point for numbers. I don't know how he's not a 6, because he is objectively harder to kill than fairly beefy characters. The out of activation stuff potentially to heal is just frustrating to play against. Like, as an attacker, knowing that your opponent could just randomly heal to full while also, like, because even if you don't heal at all, even if you don't have the power to We Are Venom, and they're like, oh, I got you because you don't have enough power, and then you just so many snacks and kill them, you're like, okay, I just dazed Nebula while she's trying to kill me. It's like, I don't care that I didn't heal. Like, you're done. Like, I prevented an attack. Like, I did that in the game against Parker. Like, you don't need to necessarily heal to protect yourself.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a trickle. Like, I can't tell you how many games, and you've played against it where it happens, where you go after him, you can't seem to get through it, and then suddenly he's back to full health again. I mean, that by itself is crazy. Very few can do it. I mean, hell, you have to spend tactics cards to get what he has on his card. I'm going to give him a 7.
Parker?
I would say because most of the ranged attackers in the game do exactly what they need to do to beat him, and he doesn't do a whole lot against that except try to get in closer with them. I would say that he is I'd say he's a 6 because it takes power to do all of his stuff. He's got to be at the right range. But man, here's what's funny about him. He's a 6 for defense, but every once in a while you put Venom down on the table, your opponent goes, shit. Because they have nothing. Like, they got nothing. Venom won't die. Like, that's it. And you're like, crap. Like, I don't have an energy attack beyond range 3. Shit. And like and so you have Venom pick up at least one objective, and that objective is what you're scoring for the rest of the game. Because...
Well, we did speak on other characters and their ability to use cards that make them different. I mean, he closes the gap with his card, the tactics card. Which is that one, Brandon?
Lethal Protector. Yeah. It costs 2, bodyguard someone within 3, and place within range 1 of that character.
And then suddenly you've done damage to him. He's got plenty of power, and then he just starts churning the machine. Like,
yeah. And the best part, just like we said, like, I move up, I attack so-and-so. Cool, Lethal Protector, you're actually hitting Venom. And So Many Snacks doesn't require him to suffer damage from the attack. So even if they don't hurt you, like, you could play someone who's weak to physical, then bodyguard them, come in with your high defense to physical guy, and then punch them back after they've done their 2 actions and bleed them. Even if you don't deal damage, they're still taking damage regardless of the outcome. Mm-hmm. And it's really frustrating. And I will say, Great Responsibility is really good on Venom, but not in the way you think. I've re-rolled successful defenses to get enough power to We Are Venom on So Many Snacks. It's like, I'll re-roll this block. Oh, look, it's a skull. That's fine. And they're like, what are you doing? It's like, take 2, spend 5, So Many Snacks, We Are Venom. You're dead, I'll heal 4. And they're like, this isn't fair. Like, yeah, it was pretty funny.
He's a cool machine.
Anyway,
he's a cool machine.
So we have 2 6s and a 7. I think I'm going to put in a 6. I think I agree with a 6. There are weaknesses to his game. There's a lot of things that can interrupt what he's doing, mainly power generation. So it's range dependent, damage type dependent, power dependent. That being said, it's very powerful effects. Moving on to support, we have... not a lot. Basically, his tactics card, which is, like we talked about, Lethal Protector, which is a bodyguard at range, which is pretty nice because it's like, surprise, my melee guy is here and he's punching you right now, which is great. Outside of that, not really a lot of support. As we talked about, like the web snare from like Webline with Peter Parker can set up some good stuff, but I think we have to rate that more of a control effect than a support effect. Do you guys want to bring it up above 1 because of Lethal Protector? Because I think if you're playing Venom, you're probably playing Lethal Protector, or you're building bad lists, I think
you can bring it to a 3 just because Lethal Protector stops. It makes your opponent check themselves. They can't just do stuff that they want to you. I think that's very strong.
And like I said earlier, like, it's not even necessarily that you get the bodyguard. It's your opponent has to expect you to use it even if you're not planning to use it, because they have to go, well, if I move and shoot that guy, my last activation is going to be shooting Venom to give him more power. Then Venom's going to activate with more power in melee with me, or even like just in a really awkward spot, then potentially activate, drag someone in and kill them and eat them and heal to full again. And it's like a whole new problem. And so it creates more of like a hesitation on your opponent than anything else, because they have to plan for it.
Mm-hmm. Also,
I'm okay with a 3.
I was going to say, I think it's actually a 3, and for me, it's not printed on his card. It's usually stapled to him. So after you get used to playing against him a whole bunch, you should expect to see it. But it's not on his card, and so it's not. It's a. Sometimes, like my game against you, I totally forgot it was there because it's not on his card, and then all of a sudden, not Lifesaver, Lethal Protector. Okay. I forgot it was there all of a sudden, now he is. Now he's all of a sudden over here. Well, it actually wasn't that. I don't think I died as a result of it. What the problem is, it stopped me from doing a crucial attack at that moment that I needed. It was part of my game plan.
Yeah. You're like, okay, I've got like Hawkeye or Valkyrie or whoever almost dead, 1 hit away. Here comes the killing blow. Oh, just kidding. Venom's here and he's got power and he's killing me. Yeah. That's great. Like, oh well. Yep. Yeah, the fact that it's like semi like we talk about how Webline's so great about getting around bodyguard. Well, this one's range 3. Like, that's a lot harder to get people out of. and so it's much harder to counter. I'm good with a 3. Parker said 3. Jeremy said 3. Moving on to control. Surprisingly high rating, I think we're going to have. Clintar Rage does cost 3, which is a little on the high side, but it throws a trained feature or enemy character up to size 3. Medium, which is farther than most things throw. And he has Web Snare, which is upgraded Webline. So Webline is within range 4, pull short. His is pull medium, which is a noticeable change in distance. Also, can still use it multiple times, just on different people. Both great effects. Talk amongst yourselves.
Web Snare, that puts you in the 6. Clintar Ridge puts you on a 7. I'll just throw a 7 out right now.
I think 7's a little high. I think you're being a little aggressive because he's not going to... Well, I guess he could get enough power to do both.
Dude, he always has power. He always has power.
He has as much control as Peter Parker, except he doesn't have the movement to get into place to use it as easily, and he doesn't have impact webbing, which is the power generating attack. He's more at the mercy of just using his strikes and taking damage. He can't just go, I'm within range 4 of someone. I guess they're moving regardless of what happens.
Well, Peter got a 10. He's going to get a 7.
Okay. Parker, your thoughts? Do you think it's a 7 too?
I don't know if he's a 7, and I think the reason why is it's funny. It's almost like what actually happens in a game. Like how often I feel like he's got these like 2 back pocket abilities. You're like, oh yeah, I can just turn into a controller all of a sudden. So at first I want to rate him lower, but I think it's because you want to spend all of his power on doing all of his really cool stuff where he lives forever and is an amazing brawler. You don't want to spend it on his ability to just automatically place everybody where he wants. And so I think it's a problem if we don't rate him high, because he does have better versions of some of those powers that we already rated high. I think it's wrong to not rate him high.
As I'm looking at his card, I'm kind of being
yeah, like even though it seems crazy,
he's literally just Peter Parker but better, and then doesn't have impact webbing, which is the worst part of Peter's kit.
He doesn't consistently have like we said, he doesn't consistently get all the power he wants to do that, and he might be spending his power on like what we're kind of putting him usually in Web Warriors 4, which is getting stuck in and doing dirty work. But I think he has.
Well, being that he doesn't have spider senses, I think it's a legitimate point to say, because his built-in survivability mechanic is cost power, right? So I think it's fair to say he's going to have less power, but he's also going to take more damage than Peter is because he doesn't have spider senses. So like, if we were saying it just erase everything else on his card but the control effects, I think it'd be an 8 or a 9. But because he's not going to have the power always to use it, I think I'm actually kind of agreeing with Jeremy. I think a 7 is actually pretty fair. Because there's characters that would kill to have those 2 abilities.
Yeah.
And Peter can't throw size 3 stuff.
Oh, I was going to say 7. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess regardless of what I say, it's going to be a 7. So I'll agree with 7. Look, guys, I'm with the team.
Way to go. Peer pressure's a bitch.
Moving on. There's I think only 2 roles for this guy. I think he's a brute.
He's a paladin.
Because his goal is to kind of get in there and just not die while beating on people. Not really blow anybody up, but like his goal is just kind of wade through the fight and never die. And then you could argue he's a controller, but I think that's, as we just talked about, that's his secondary. Like if he can swing the game by using his control powers, he's going to do it. But his primary focus is going to be like punching people and surviving.
I agree. I think the thing that people get wrong with this game, and I find myself doing it all the time as well, is we forget how to win this game. Mm-hmm. And Venom is really cool because he loves to fight. But you can fight, and you can do whatever to all these models and do tons of damage and do all kinds of badass stuff. But at the end of the day, if you don't have 16 points, you don't win. And he can do both, so which is really cool.
Yeah. No, I think for that exact reason he like edges out people like Black Dwarf, because Black Dwarf isn't going to decide the game, but he's going to, other than that, he's basically going to be Venom for the game. He's going to basically never die, be really hard to get off of points, and hit people a lot, but he's not going to swing the game at the end on those crucial turns when you're like deciding who's going to get to 16. So on roll, do we have a consensus?
I would say
with
he's a brute because that's what he's doing most games. I'd say he's a brute.
Yeah,
the majority of turns.
Okay, we've agreed on brute. We've hit his numbers. We have 7, 6, 3, 7, which is 23. Is that the highest total we have so far? No, I meant for the Web Warriors. So I think Miles actually beats him out. Miles is a 23 as well, actually. Hold on. And then 15, 22. So he'll be tied for the highest totals added up, which we all know that not everything is equal to the sum of its parts. So where do we rate Venom? In a vacuum, I would like to say as an opener, I think Venom is the most likely to go in someone else's list because he does a little bit of everything while having still an obvious role on any team.
He also is so regardless of what you do and how much you screw up during the course of a game, Venom's usually still there doing a good job, right? Like, how many characters can do that? Like, you get Black Dwarf. If he's out of...
I'm just picturing Will Smith from Hancock, like, good job. Like,
yeah, but I mean, think about, like, Black Dwarf. You're like, okay, I'm going to go over here on this flank, and then everyone ran away, and there's no one to kill. God damn it. But with Venom, I mean, he can get around. He can do whatever he needs to do. And he's got Lethal Protector that he can use that card and then be anywhere. Like, he's so solid in pretty much any list. So good.
Parker, do you have anything to add before we get numbers?
I do not. One of the funny things about his rating, I think, is that part of taking Venom in your list is actually, do you have the space for his card? Because the card is so strong, you really want it. But if you are looking at your list and you're like, oh man, I already have 12 cards I want to put in this list, it's kind of funny. That is actually one of the reasons why Venom might not make the cut, is because you really want to take his card very badly, for all the reasons we've said. So I think it's interesting that even though his card is super good, I think as an overall rating across the game, it might actually make it more difficult to put him in every list because you want to take his card so bad. I know when I'm building a list, one of the things that I look at is, okay, do I have 3 characters in my roster that all have special character cards and I want to take them all? Well, then I'm not going to be able to do that. That's going to be tough. He might lose a spot because of his taking up slots in that part of the game as well as just his roster spot. Interesting.
Okay, so to rebuttal that, I think if you don't put Lethal Protector in your roster, you're an idiot. And there's obviously something to cut. Now, it might be that you want to take the cards that you're taking, but you shouldn't be taking the cards that you're taking, because Lethal Protector is definitely better than one of the 8. The only exception I could possibly see is, like, you're playing Defenders. And so, like, you've already got, like, Peter Parker and whatever, and you don't have room for, like, Uneasy Allies and Lethal Protector, and you've already got a bunch of defensive powers with Doctor Strange and Wong, and then you've also got, like, 3 fucking Tactics cards that Doctor Strange has because he has spells, and then, like, what if a Defender's card comes out later and you gotta play that too? I could maybe see it, but I mean, the answer is yes.
I actually think you answered your own question there. As more expansions are coming out, we're already seeing it. Like, they're just adding more cards into the game. Guardians is about to get another great card. As Guardians are about to get another great card. So, like, since they've already set up the precedent that teams are going to get more cards for their factions, I think you're going to see. We just talked about today. Magneto has 3 cards he wants to play already. So I think. I don't think it's as simple as. I really don't think it's as simple as Lethal Protector is always better than the card you were going to put in your list. I 100% disagree. I think there's going to be factions that you don't take. Okay,
that's fair.
I'm saying you look at all the great guys, all the great brutes you put in your list, and you're like, oh, Venom is always strong, but I'd have to find a spot for his tactics card. That's what I'm saying. You have to think about that when you take him because it's so strong. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's incorrect, and we should just take Venom because he's great. But
well, I mean, if you're taking Venom, is my point. Like, obviously, if you're not planning on playing Venom, don't just shove him in your
Yeah.
list because. But yeah, I understand that, and obviously I was being hyperbolic, but yeah, obviously take Metal Crush over Lethal Protector. But I mean, that was the first card you added, so don't be an idiot. But yeah, generally speaking, when I look at a person's list of 8, I'm like, that can easily come out for whatever. I usually start building my tactics list by going, what are my faction cards? Do I want to play any of these? And then what are my character-specific cards? Do I want to play any of these? And then fill out the rest. And usually just jam Brace and Medpack at the end, probably. But you don't have to necessarily. Okay, so what do we feel like for numbers?
Where was Valkyrie? Give me a baseline again.
Valkyrie overall
Yeah,
was
overall.
a 8.
Oh my.
Because we figured in the games that you wanted to take a scrapper for 3 points, she's very rarely going to be in conversation with anyone else.
That's true. 3 points set her apart. I
and
get
then
it.
just damage dealer in general, just also still good.
Yeah.
Do you guys want me to go first? Parker, do you want to go first? Does anybody else
I'll
want to
go.
Parker, you go first. Go first, Parker.
Parker.
I'm actually going to put him at his overall rating of a 7, and I think he could be. I know that seems really high, but I think people are going to reach for him every time they want a brute because he has a game what they call a game softener. Like he's hard to fail, and he has such a great kit in the late game if you need to control, and the early game if you need to engage with his control effects. And Lethal Protector, if you have the spot for it, it's just one of the strongest cards in the game. The only reason why I think he's maybe not an 8 is for the reason I already said, which is there's going to be situations where you specifically don't want him, and because that exists for him, I think he's a 7.
I think I was going to start with a 6, but I am very easily talked up to a 7. I think that what you said was pretty much correct. When you want a brute, he's never necessarily the wrong choice, but he's also maybe one of the only brutes that can win you the game on those final turns because of how much control he has and his staying power throughout the game. Because a lot of people lose their ability to heal on the backside. He doesn't. I think Groot's the only other one that also doesn't lose his healing ability, at least of characters currently out. So I think, yeah, I think Lethal Protector, range 3 bodyguard is huge. It also places him in an aggressive way, so it's a mobility card for him. It's a protection card for your other guys. It's not overly expensive. It forces people to attack him, which is going to generate you more power. It's going to trigger so many snacks. Like, even saving it for late game just to annoy your opponent is sometimes worth it. I think I agree with 7.
Easy 7. I'm going to go all the same reasons.
Easy peasy, breezy, 7s.
He's always he always
hit that
does
Staples easy button.
It does. There you go. He does the job.
Okay. Well, that's going to wrap up our Web Warriors. Our ratings seem a little high. I'm curious if that's just because of our Web Warriors experience of being really strong. But I don't feel bad about any of these ratings. Like, in the previous weeks, I've always felt bad about at least one of them.
Womp womp.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, I'm pretty happy with these. I am very excited to see Web Warriors moving forward, and I hope we see more diversity of control spread into other lists, because right now it feels very much like it's basically just the Web Warriors, and then there's very few other factions that actually play control, and everyone else is just kind of like copying them. And so I want to see if that actually changes.
It needs to change.
Yeah.
I mean, they've
we
spoken.
We definitely need to see other people playing control so that people can get used to it.
I actually, what I want to see
Go ahead.
is I want to see some hard counters to control. I want to see, like, it looks like a throwaway effect, right? Because it just want to say cannot be pushed, or cannot be pulled or something like that, whatever it is. Like, I want to see that as an ability on a card. Or what would be the best way to do it is I want to see like a token in the game that's like something you can give out that says this, this character cannot be pushed or this character cannot be pulled. Cannot be thrown, something like that. I would like to see somebody come out with that, because I guess maybe they don't. Maybe they're really nervous about it because it's like scenario is such a big part of the game. They want people to play for the scenario, and giving a character the ability to just sit on a point and not be moved is maybe damaging to that, I guess. But since they also printed a faction that has like 3 of the best controllers of the game, and they can kill you with at least one turn. They're going to kill you with all webbed up, and they're not.
Yeah, I think Sorry, I just want to jump in here real quick. The problem I think with Web Warriors isn't that they're the control faction; it's that they're also not bad at anything else. Like they fight just as hard as most of everyone in the game, and their turn of offense is brutal, truly brutal. And so like they hit harder than most factions do like almost any faction does on that turn. Like I have Black Order turns where I'm like, man, I wish I hit that hard, because their guys are generally so cheap that they have so many attacks. They can get you into position to be attacked, so they don't lose activations moving. And oh my god, yeah, it's. I think that's honestly the problem, is that they're also hard to kill. They're also elusive, and they also hit super hard back to you when you try and fight them. I think that's the problem. Go ahead.
That's the problem. Ugh. There's like 4 problems. I get what you're saying, is that it's all those things together in one faction make it so silly, but that's one of the reasons why I would like to see they have like some generic countering things, and like a lot of the status effects in the game are just like shave off 1 defense die, shave off 1 power, that kind of thing. I would like to see more excellent effects, especially ones that you can like dole out. I would like to see a Wong type character whose only job is for 1 power, give this person a steadfast token. They cannot be moved, in any direction. Right now we've got what? 1? Is there only 1? Is it just Captain America and Winter Soldier's card? Is that the one thing that says I'm here?
Till the end of the line. Till the end of the line means they can't be pushed. There's a web barrier says that those 2 characters can't be moved. Conveniently, the Web Warriors have 1. Their psychic shielding device isn't bad, but the problem being that like you're still vulnerable to throws. It just can't be pushed or advanced. Okay. And so you're still vulnerable to throw powers, and you're still vulnerable to non-psychic attacks that push, which is impact webbing. So if you're a size 3 character with psychic shielding device, Venom can throw you, and that's about it. But that's not enough. Like, there shouldn't still be an answer, right? Like, if you pay, 5 power to play a card, you should be safe, right? That would be my opinion. I think there should be, at least 1 turn of the game where you can just say, I'm going to dump a bunch of power. You can't fuck with me. I'm going to move on. That should be an option. And so I think Psychic Shielding Device was a good idea, but that came out before the Web Warriors did, I think. So I think that we would like to see something similar to that, but on a more just specifically can't be moved. It doesn't need to add to defense or whatever, but for the remainder of the turn, your models can't be thrown, push. Well, I guess thrown is kind of hard, but
my thing is, what's really sad is they made the Web Warriors, and I feel like they can't go back now. They can't go back and undo Web Warriors. So now what they have to do is add more effects to the game, which is maybe that's not the direction I would have liked to have seen happen. I would like to have seen them go, maybe we gave this faction too much offense while it already has control and defense. We probably overreached with this one, and now we've made an objective-based game with 6 turns in it that the Web Warriors are going to always win 4 of those turns, because the turn they have to fight, they have all webbed up, and the other 3 turns they'll just control you. So I don't think anyone can beat them reliably. Whoops! The problem is they made a game that's 6 turns and it's scenario based. So,
I don't think the 6 turns is specifically relevant, because you're going to get to 16 by 6 if you're trying. So,
what I mean is the Web Warriors don't have. One of the things they don't have is an incredible health pool, I guess I keep saying that they don't have an incredible health pool. There's just 4 of the characters, and they're only 14 points. If you have any other points, to drop in something with health. That's the other part that we kept talking about the other day. Like it was so obnoxious. We were like, man, Web Warriors, they seem really, really strong. Yeah, really, really strong unit. What's their weakness? What's their weakness? Like, well, I guess there's this. They're like, oh, wait a minute. They're only 14 fucking points together. Like, so you look at whatever their weakness is and put in a character that can do that, or
I don't know that it's fair to yell at them for being 4 characters for 14 points. I think that's actually average amongst lists.
No, yes,
because a lot of people play a lot of 3 and 2 point characters. But yeah,
we've
I get what you're saying.
already ascertained that the Web Warriors, because of their the all webbed up card, web barrier if you want to play it, and the things that they have already, that just so happens that so many the characters in the list have so many control effects. It's very a punishing group. And it just happens to be only 14 points. So if there's anything you want to do better, like get the scenario better, or do ranged attacks better, or live longer, you've still got 6 other character slots, and at least 3 more points usually to do something with that. And that is very, very, very strong. When just the 4-point module the 4 character module is going to give you so much.
No, it's definitely good. Like we've talked about how good it is. The problem is like is the control, because obviously like the fighting is what it is.
Yeah.
The defense is what it
is.
is.
Every faction fights.
Is the control too much?
Yeah.
Is it objectively too much, or is it just that people? Because I will say, like Jeremy's the one I played the most. I played 5 games against Jeremy. Well, 4 with Web Warriors, and so 4 games against Jeremy with Web Warriors. And I think every time we played, he got a little bit better. And obviously he was changing his list a little bit. He wasn't like directly trying to counter me, but we were doing our best to like make interesting games. And the last game I think was the closest, because we just managed to tar pit ourselves. And so maybe that with enough play and like different scenarios coming out, I think a lot of people don't put a lot of thought into the scenarios they play, and mostly because they're not afraid of Web Warriors. And so once people, I think, start respecting Web Warriors' control power, they'll start playing different scenarios, which don't give your opponent as much opportunity to score. So they won't get to 16 as fast, so you'll have more time to try and fight them. And then they'll learn to play better on scenario. They'll not just willingly choose who to activate and leave them off of points, or like they won't be as susceptible to being web lined off of a point super easily, and they'll try and like box themselves in a little bit. And it might be that kind of like War Machine, where the players start subconsciously deploying terrain in ways that is beneficial to the players. And it's like, well, I'm going to put a car here, which is going to block this area, which usually has an objective token in it. So that way they can't be easily pushed off the objective because they'll run into the terrain first. Like that might start happening. And then like choosing board side will be way more important.
There's another thing about this faction that, speaking of like other games, is control is incredibly weak in the hands of a novice or an inexperienced player, or a player who doesn't see these kind of angles. Control is one of those things that is not a game softener. It's a game harden. It makes the game harder, literally. So like if you play Web Warriors and you're brand new to this game, you will probably hate the faction, throw it away, and everyone who plays against you will think that Web Warriors are a joke because they have such great control and you can't utilize them yet, or maybe ever. So you're really going to ever struggle to find success. But when you put them in the hands of a competent player that understands the tempo of the game, the number of actions, they can look 3 steps ahead and maybe 2 turns ahead to the number of points they're going to have versus the number of points you're going to have. If I do this and this and this and this and this with my models, and these and this and this and this and this with your models, because I have that layer because I'm a great control faction. When I can play my army and your army at the same time, now all of a sudden control becomes incredibly punishing. And because of that, I think it's going to be funny. As much as we will talk about Web Warriors and how strong they are, and we'll probably boogeyman them for forever on this podcast because we've had this experience so far.
I think that's going to change, is what I was trying to say. Is I don't think it's going to be this oppressive like forever. I think part of it is that a lot of people are still getting back into the game after COVID, and a lot of them have never played against someone who's just objectively going for scenario the entire game. But I do agree a lot with what you said. When you add in control style effects, basically what they do is give you astronomically more options than they do to your opponent. And a lot of those options are to undo things your opponent has done. And you being able to sift through those 200 or 300 options to decide specifically what is the best one or what is the most optimal at this moment, what will give me the best opportunities later in the turn, that can lead to a lot of the time you just go, oh, I have webline. I don't need it. I'll just punch you. Like that's obviously the most rudimentary option, but like knowing like all of the intricacies of like order of activation starts mattering a lot more when control comes into effect. Like if I move on to this point before Peter Parker's activated, I'm just going to get pulled off unless I can force him to do something else with his activation or his power. And so it's a lot of if then this kind of situations, and you have to keep all of that in your head while still making good choices.
And for that reason, I think I don't think it's going to be oppressive until you get to in a community, in a meta, in a tournament, or whatever it is, where you encounter the first Web Warriors opponent who is competent at playing his army and yours, and then all of a sudden you'll be like, Web Warriors table flip, and that's going to be, your opinion of Web Warriors after you see them that one time.
There are definitely going to be negative play experiences because people who have never played them before just be like, why aren't you playing like normal? Like, why are you doing all this weird stuff? Or like the first time someone gets Venom Blast on downtown and they drop the 2-point objective and Miles picks it up and teleports away, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, and he's like, it just says that? You just take my token? He's like, yeah, sorry, bye. And he just like leaves. And then you go to shoot him, you move into stealth range and shoot him, and then he gets lifesavered even further away, and you're like, God damn it! Like, and then next turn you get the priority, you go screaming across the table with whatever ability you have, like let's say Corvus Glaive motherships in after Proxima gets within range, and then he goes to swing, and then you're just like, just kidding, lethal protector, and you're like, like just more and more layers of bullshit stopping you from doing what you want. Because your opponent's making all the decisions. You're just at his mercy. And so a lot of the game is basically going to be, did he make the best possible decisions? And your only option is to make that margin of error as thin as possible, because they're still making all the decisions no matter how good your decisions are.
And here's my little, I'll say this one more time, because of every other game I've ever played in which they introduced a really strong controlling army or list or group or battle group, whatever, it will not be just good today. It will be good until they take this particular set of things out of the game. Every single time I've ever seen this, it was always good until there was a monstrous version reset, and they realize, crap, we've messed up with Web Warriors. This faction is too good at controlling. It will be good forever and ever for a player who wants to play this way. And the good news is, the nice news is, it'll be a minority of players. A minority of players, I have found in my experience, enjoy playing a purely control type experience where they don't interact with your opponent at all. They're playing solitaire, mostly watching their opponent struggle to get to them. Speaking from a person who played that faction a lot in War Machine, I stopped doing it on purpose in my meta. I dropped it cold and hard because people got so frustrated with me. I didn't enjoy playing the game anymore because of people's attitudes, so I quit doing it. And so I don't think you'll see Web Warriors destroying your local meta very often, because it'll either be piloted by people who are going to struggle to pilot it, or it's going to be piloted by people who will quickly realize that it's no fun for anyone and they won't do it.
Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much going to bring us to closing statements. We ran a little bit long on that, but...
Sorry.
Jeremy, do you have any thoughts on closing statements? Anything you want to say before we leave?
Well, Web Warriors is strong, just as he's saying. But I will still play Cabal into it, and I'll let you walk Red Skull right the fuck off the board, I guess. Yeah. It's strong. What are you gonna do? I mean, I think all the ratings and everything were pretty accurate, and all those ratings equal winning some games. If that's what you want to do right now, get good at Web Warriors.
Yeah. I think what will happen is the community, if it does get oppressive, the community will start sifting through the trenches and try and find every possible counter mechanic in the game. And like stuff like Red Skull's placement effect are really good against it. So they'll be able to like, oh, I webline you off the point. And you're like, cool. I activate Cosmic Portal. He moves back on the point. Your turn. And you're like, oh. And so like stuff like that is going to start becoming a lot more prevalent, which is why I think there will be a little bit of a rubber band where it's like they'll jump out way in front because people aren't used to it. Then combination of player experience and skill plus like good choices and roster building to counter it are going to bring everyone belts right back into the pack.
You're not going to win against Web Warriors on accident. Let's just say that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, experience is what everyone's going to need, and so that's going to be important. But as we said, that's pretty much going to wrap us up today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We appreciate your time. This has been Brandon.
And Parker.
And Jeremy.
And this has been PB&J.
Oh my god!
Did you guys not see that coming?
No! You threw us a new one!
PB&J. I actually didn't put that one on the list. I just typed it out a minute ago so you guys wouldn't know it was coming.
That was delightful.
So cute.
Oh boy.
God. I keep seeing this image, and it's the picture of Wolverine, and then it's got the quote underneath it, and it says it's just 2 pictures of Batman kissing. Have you seen that?
What?
I can't unsee it.
Where is this?
I'm on the Mocan Marvel Crisis board, and somebody posted it up. I can't even find it again. But it's got a picture of Wolverine, and it's basically 2 Batman side by side kissing is what his face looks like.
Oh, because of his mask, like straight on.
Yes. It's so funny. You can't like unsee it. Like, okay.
And honestly, I've talked to several people. A lot of people say they enjoy longer episodes, and some people say they don't. So we're kind of like, there's 2 groups, and both of them want it to be longer or shorter. And so we're kind of in the middle. And so I'm gonna try it both ways and see which episode's more popular.
We haven't lost anybody from Thailand, have we? 'Cause I know how
Thailand,
they are.
I don't think we ever had someone from Thailand. Although Singapore, it doesn't even register on the bar anymore. It just says less than 1%.
Oh,
But that's a number.
Yeah.
Less than 1% is.
They're not telling their
It
friends.
is a number. Australia is up to 2%.
Nice.
The UK is up to 15%.
All right.
And then our US usually ranges anywhere from like 75 to 85%, depending on the week. It says we have 173 listens and 30 average audience size per episode. So that's good.
Cool.
Huh, that's good.
Episode 2 was by far our most popular. I don't know why. Probably because episode 2 was like the first week it was out.
Yeah.
Because I basically dumped 1 and 2 at the same time. And that's the one I listen to every day at lunch on a different account.
That's the one.
I can't even remember what it was about. I think that was the episode building one. Okay, well,
no.
John, I know you're listening because you're one of our listeners, and you said you like short episodes. But I'm gonna go in here and check something real quick. Episodes, analytics, episode 5, 3 hours 34 minutes. Average listen time 3 hours 7 minutes. So they basically listen to everything but the pre-ramble.
Yeah.
Think that's actually pretty impressive. But I'm gonna try and get them down so more people can enjoy them. So
Let's hit it.
So real quick before we get started, I figured something out about an hour ago. I was always mad because my web browser on my phone keeps crashing constantly. And I finally was just so frustrated because I use it when I'm painting and I open up their like 3D modeling of their figures. And I was always really annoyed because it would keep crashing every time I tried to turn it so I could see different details and how they're supposed to be painted so I could get inspiration. And so I finally just get so annoyed. I go to the App Store and I search for the browser I'm using. And apparently I'm using a 10 years out of date discontinued version of the browser that hasn't been like fucking upkept since like 2010. I'm like, oh, that's probably why it keeps crashing. Like, it crashed 6 times while I was trying to open the same image. And I'm like, I'm so done with this. This is so trash. I opened the new one. It's super responsive, super quick, 0 crashes. I was like, God damn it. Like, this could have been better the whole time.
You did it.
It's like when you stop using IE for the first time. But something I noticed, did you guys know that the Hela model is not the one that's on the box?
Yes, I actually did notice that.
The box art is different than the model.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's noticeably different. Her cape is different because it folds up as the last part instead of folding down as the last part. It's less bunched up. And then the fire is just noticeably different. There's way more fire on the box art. So unless someone sculpted more fire on there and re-sculpted the cape, it was a different iteration of the model that they put on there,
It's interesting.
which is crazy to me. Although those boxes came out about the time COVID started hitting. So, because I'm pretty sure they produce a lot of their stuff in Asia. And by them, I mean Asmodee. So,
Got it. What is
Okay.
their name?
We did it. We ended before 2 a.m, which I don't know how much
oh
better
my
this
god.
is.
Well, I mean, we started late and then fucking everything happened last week. Okay, so let's see.
This is still a 3-hour podcast, by the way.
No, it's 52 to 113. So we had 21 minutes that isn't going to count, plus all the cutouts and everything. Plus, we're going to lose some time with the truncation. I think we're going to be around 2:15 by the time I edit it, which will be about what I was looking for.
Okay, yeah,
Between
that's fine.
music and then pre-ramble at the end. That'll put us over 2 hours. But the actual meat of the podcast will be, I think, 1:45.
Okay. I like
Maybe
that.
if
I
someone
wanted to-
didn't fucking have a brownout mid-podcast.
Yeah.
God, where do you live? Mexico?
It was just a power surge, but yeah.
That's a brownout.
No, that's not. Brownout is when. Never mind. I'm not
Wait.
gonna explain it to you.
You gained excess power and you lost your computer?
What? No, a
But
power.
how did you?
A power surge. Everything,
Yeah.
every single thing in my house flickered, and my computer.
Yeah, that's a brownout.
went zzz.
That's what a brownout is.
Okay, sorry. Then I do. I'm not familiar with the nomenclature.
Brownout's like an instantaneous blackout. You lose power and it immediately comes back. That's a
Okay,
brownout.
that was a
Yeah.
brownout then, not a surge.
Okay.